Good morning. Good morning. I like that. We are going to be an interactive session today. So what I do really want everyone to get out of this is what the opportunity zones are, how you can take advantage of them, whether you are a real estate developer or a small business owner. And there are really fantastic resources all together in the same room. Like, I have been doing economic development for 10 plus years, and never at one time have I seen everybody together. So I am patting myself on the back because some of you guys may not know how big of a feat that is. Like, they're really, really busy people. So some of our panelists will not be here all day, so I really want you to take the opportunity to grab them if you have questions after the panels that they speak on. Make sure you're getting contact information. Make sure you're getting information from the folks that are in the room with you as well, because one of the other things that has to happen, specifically for the small business owners, is a better job in leveraging resources, including the informational resources that some of us have a tendency to gather. So this really should not be an opportunity for you to kind of hoard the information. I want you to share. But just for a few housekeeping notes, please do not record today's session. Please do not record today's session. Feel free to take as many notes as you would like, but do not live stream. Feel free to live stream in the reception, but do not live stream anything in the theaters. And so hopefully you know where the bathrooms are. You got some great food from some of our sponsors. I want to give a thank you to Lane's Bake Shop, who has recently opened in a food hall on 111th, as well as the Woodlawn, which is a community incubator space, as well as the first pop-up restaurant licensee in the city of Chicago. So if you are a chef, caterer, want to test a concept, that is a location that you can do it at. So we are going to get started. I will do a very quick overview of what opportunity zones are, what opportunity funds are, and we are running a bit behind on time, so I will ask that all questions are held until the end, and I will do a Q&A with Maurice Williams of Chicago Community Loan Fund, so you can get your specific questions answered regarding opportunity zones and opportunity funds. If we don't answer everything, please allow us to get kind of caught back up on the agenda, but hold your questions. We will have also contact cards so you can write them down and make sure that we are presenting them to the panel so it can be addressed during that time. So, opportunity zones. Why should I care? Realistically, within the city of Chicago, there was the City of Chicago's Neighborhood Opportunity Fund. This is very different. This is a federal program. So opportunity zones are really identified by low to moderate income census tract areas. So with that brief overview of the Opportunity Zone program, there are 8,700 opportunity zones federally. Within the city of Chicago, there are 135. 133 are primarily in neighborhoods, and 2 were designated to cover the Michael Reese site. So within the city of Chicago, our local elected officials, as Ben Carson mentioned, it went from the governor to the aldermen in the city of Chicago, and some communities are almost completely opportunity zones. So if you've had a chance to look at some of the maps, there are some neighborhoods and some areas that have a tremendous concentration of contiguous opportunity zones. And in other neighborhoods, it is sparse and it's scattered. And so when you're thinking through what does that mean, it really is going to vary from neighborhood to neighborhood, but there has to be a strategy that actually is developed to address it. And the reality is that strategy is not going to come from the federal government. It really isn't. So the government has created an opportunity, no pun intended, but the government has created an opportunity for people to take advantage of. And the reality is it's a tax shelter. It is a tax shelter. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say this was created to spur, like, yes, the opportunity zones are tied to low to moderate income census tracts, areas that need more investment. But this is not an altruistic measure. This is not for the goodwill of the people. This is so rich folks can not pay as many taxes. But there is a benefit to the common person and a benefit to real estate developers. It's something that can be taken advantage of. So within Cook County, outside of Chicago, there are 146 opportunity zones in suburban Cook County. So there are areas of Joliet that have been identified as opportunity zones, and some of it is tied to or close to some of the transit-oriented development that's happening already in certain places, and other places it's not. So there are a number of things that need to happen in order to get things established. So from the standpoint of the concerns, there has really never been a financial incentive of this scale. So there have been enterprise zones. The government has done some other things to try to spur development in blighted neighborhoods, but it typically did not come with this amount of private cash. So what has now been encouraged, and the video you saw was from last month. It came out late March. He mentioned that the second round of regulations had not been released. They actually were released about 2 weeks ago. It's about 200 pages of proposed regulations. So what I am telling you today, or some of the information that you may be hearing today, may change. Now the zones are the zones. Those are not going to change for a while. So when he said you might want to go and try to get another zone designated, that designation process is closed. But what hasn't completely happened is the regulatory compliance around how these zones and funds will continue to operate. So what has happened was a release of suggested parameters. There is a response period, and then it will go into being official law. So we have some time to try to continue to understand this moving target, but at the end of the day, it boils down to there are these low to moderate income census tracts. There is money available for real estate development, and it can be tied to small business development. And from a standpoint of a larger real estate developer, of course, they're going to want to go into areas that are already gentrifying. So there might be projects that were predetermined prior to the opportunity zone designation being announced that are now going to be treated as opportunity zone projects. And so what that means is opportunity zones don't make a bad deal a good deal. So if you are a developer or a small business owner, this is not just free cash that you're going to get. This is not a grant. I've had people ask me, well, how do I apply for it? Think about Shark Tank. If you're a small business owner, think about Shark Tank. If you're a real estate developer, your numbers have to be in line. Like, your deal has to make sense. If there was no opportunity zone, your deal would still have to make sense. The opportunity zone is not going to make your deal all of a sudden this magical thing. It's a benefit and it's an incentive, but it doesn't change the reality of a deal not being a good deal. Are there any questions so far?
Are you fine with us taking pictures of your slides?
Pictures are fine, just no live video. So, comparable programs. Low-income tax credits at $9 million versus the potential of opportunity zones at $1 trillion. So we are truly talking a space that has not been navigated to date. And so all the players are at the table. Everyone who's still doing deals will continue to do deals. But it's more about how do we leverage these opportunities in a way that hasn't been leveraged before to get some things that we haven't received before. So it's very easy to push gentrification in the areas that it's happening in. But redevelopment and revitalization of corridors in communities that have been blighted and neglected for a tremendous amount of time, that is what requires more effort, more input, more stakeholders at the table to help ensure that some of these things come to fruition. From the standpoint of the funds, if you are an investor who has triggered some type of capital gain, meaning typically you sold some type of asset, stock, bond, house, business, there might be a capital gain tax that may be triggered. If that has happened, you have 180 days from that triggering occurrence to invest your fund in an opportunity fund. 180 days isn't a long period of time, so that means you kind of have to be on top of what's happening. So there have been some folks who missed that window of 180 days. You still can invest in an opportunity fund, you just don't receive the same tax benefits. So over the period of time, the reason it's so exciting is because it's encouraging investment for 10 years. So after 5 years, there is a tax reduction of 10%. After 7 years, there is a tax reduction of 15%. After 10 years, for those capital gains taxes that you have invested, there is no additional capital gains tax. So if you have this money that's sitting around after you have sold something or you have triggered that tax, it's an opportunity for you to be tax-free. So if you have that type of money floating around, or you know folks who do, talk to them about it. Because for the most part, now, in regards to actually investing in a particular fund, the funds dictate what their lowest investments are. So some funds will say we're looking for $5,000. Some funds will say we're looking for $5 million. It is up to the fund managers to dictate and determine what their minimum investment required will be. Now, if you do have those types of funds and you don't have, let's say, $5 million around, there still are opportunities that you can invest in opportunity funds, but it might be a crowdsourced position. So a lot of the real estate crowdfunding websites are doing opportunity investments, and they're usually at a lower amount. So you don't have to have that 50 million, that 5 million. You might need to do 2,500 though. And so at this point, probably as of April 7th, there were over 130 opportunity funds nationally. Now with these funds, they determine where they're going to lend. So they may say, we're looking to do national lending. Let me rephrase that. National investing, because it's all equity, it's not debt. So I want to be very clear, it's equity. All of the investments are equity investments. So as a business owner, like I said, think about Shark Tank. When the businesses are pitching and they're asking for that investment for a given percentage of that business, that's what this model is. So if you're not thinking around an equity structure and this is something you would like to participate in, you kind of have to get your mind wrapped around that. In the zones, the funds must be invested in at least 90% of qualified opportunity zone assets. So that means these fund managers cannot take this money and use it elsewhere. The zones will typically also fall along other incentive areas, which is why it's so important for you to refer to the map. It very much is an address by address basis. So meaning that within the city of Chicago, there might be a special service area, there might be a TIF district, there might be an enterprise zone program, there might be some other incentives that you can layer upon you being within an opportunity zone to take advantage of some of those initial benefits. But you really do have to check on a case-by-case basis. Meaning that the thought is you can't just have a business, let's say, located to a low-income neighborhood and just do all these internet sales. They really are trying to encourage the support and inclusion of indigenous businesses with that thought process. And again, this is one of those regulations or proposed regulations that is proposed. It may change. You will generate revenue. 50% of your revenue has to come from within the zone that you're located in.
No matter where you're based out.
Your business should be based in a zone. So we're talking about opportunity zones, like businesses that are within opportunity zones who have received investments from opportunity funds. So if, let's say, me being Rich Mama Warbucks, invest in your business that's located in an opportunity zone. Your business has to generate 50% of your revenue from the opportunity zone that you're located in. So as I mentioned, small business investment is a qualified use of opportunity funds. New development is a qualified use of opportunity funds. Upgrades, so we're talking either renovation or completely new construction for opportunity fund projects. And so it really can be a mechanism of community development. So this is Nipsey Hussle, for those who don't know. Young, black entrepreneur in a extremely blighted neighborhood. Where he was killed was actually a part of an opportunity zone project. His business partner was a very wealthy real estate investor who understood the opportunity zones. So they developed and utilized some of those funds to purchase, renovate a strip mall, also create a STEM program for youth in Crenshaw. So the programs are still running, and it can truly address real needs. But I think it needs to be paired, again, with somebody who understands the needs of certain communities, with somebody who has the assets to bring those things to fruition. So again, real estate-driven investments. Even as a small business owner, there should and typically be a real estate component tied to the investment that you would be looking for. Identify models. There are currently nonprofit models with social enterprises, and I bring this up because a lot of nonprofits, I get questions from them. I believe every nonprofit should have a revenue generating program or arm via a social enterprise, and Sweet Beginnings is one of those things. They recently received a $500,000 social impact loan. That could have easily been an opportunity fund investment. So think through, like there may not be exactly something that you want to do, but there are enough models to create something. Like look to see what works, put it together with your business or your real estate development project, and make sure, because there are already proven models. What's not going to happen with a lot of these funds is untested concepts, because again, it's an investment. Everybody wants their money back. Banks don't do untested concepts. Investors don't do untested concepts without a whole lot of other promises. But for the most part, think through what has already been proven. And it's plenty. It just requires a little more research. So projecting forward, we have to get to work. There are a number of stakeholders that need to be involved realistically to make the Opportunity Zone program as beneficial as it could be. From a municipal perspective, that's the city of Chicago. Every developer talks about this, and we'll get into this in the first panel after this session, but infrastructure development. Nobody wants to put a business where it's not accessible by public transportation, the streets are messed up, the lighting is bad, there's safety. There has to be infrastructure investment. Increased transit access, and expanding the creative development of incentives for various levels of development. So things like the City of Chicago's Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, that should be expanded, and it could be expanded in conjunction with the Opportunity Zone program. Letting the cash flow, so to all my lenders in the room, increasing the access of alternative sources of capital. So again, we are in a space and a time where a lot of things are changing. A whole lot of things are changing. And so in order to really get the biggest reach and have a great impact, increasing that cash, but also increasing the impact of the service providing organizations. So the intermediaries need capacity building. It's not as easy as just giving someone some money and thinking they'll be able to do some really good things with it. You see all the rich people who win the lotto and end up poor in about 3 years. It's because nobody built that capacity. So the money itself isn't just the issue. And then increasing the reach. There are a number of smaller organizations that are doing really good things, but they don't have broad reach. And so it's going to take a larger player partnering with a smaller player to get the best impact. For real estate developers, we're always talking about highest and best use. So building your tenants into your deals. And this goes back to the small businesses being ready to be built into a deal, having something that someone can build into a deal. So I will get calls and someone will say, I need some money. And my first question is always, well, why? And if you can't answer that question, you're not ready for money. It can't just be this blank check. So you really should have specific uses of your funds and what you plan to do, as well as how you plan to pay it back. How is getting this money going to support what you need to do? And being open to hybrid models. So as I mentioned, it may be something that doesn't come out of a cookie cutter box. Thinking through the Shark Tank proposition. Preparing your business for an equity investment. Know your uses. Of course, be profitable because you have to pay this money back. This is not a gift. It's not a grant. You do have to repay it. You do have to repay it from the lender in the room. Your funds will need to be repaid. So for those who, Calvin has said, people misunderstand the funds needing to be repaid. These are investment dollars. Investments typically need to be repaid. It's an investment. Somebody wants a return on their investment. They don't want to give you a gift. It's not a gift, it's an investment. So they are looking for a certain rate of return. And identify why you are the best to fill a need in a given geography. So because these opportunity zones are geographically based, if you're a local entrepreneur, be it a developer or a small business owner, you have some insight that other people don't have. You know your market. You should know your market. You should know things that cannot be pulled from a Nielsen study, that can't be pulled from a typical sales tax report. You should know those things and be prepared to essentially quantify your knowledge, quantify how knowing that translates into dollars. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question on the prior slide. Because it's an equity investment that is tied to real estate, if there's a default on the investment, does that equity, the investor then take an interest? Is it secured by is the real estate securing that loan? And then if there's a default, then does the equity investor then step in? Or does it depend on the nature of the deal?
I'm going to let Maurice Williams answer that question.
So to Calvin's point, to our point, that investment is designed to increase in value so that the return is there at the 10-year horizon. So if that does not happen, or if there's bumps along the road, then it's recaptured or restructured in the meantime.
Tina is interim executive director for the organization, so she is doing some great things. GSDC is one of those nonprofits that is also a real estate developer. So we'll take a few moments to let the panel introduce themselves and get into the discussion.
Thank you, Kristen. So it's exciting to be here. Are you all excited to be here? Yay, the first ever Urban Real Estate Conference is exciting. I've had the opportunity to work with Kristen for about a decade now, and we've had some good times. It's been a struggle out here trying to figure out how we're going to make this work, and so this is an exciting time to talk about new opportunities that are available to all of us as we figure out what we're doing and how we can make new things happen. And I'm excited to be here, but I'm going to let myself stop talking and have our panel go ahead and introduce who you are, where you're from, why you find yourself here, whatever you'd like to share.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jim Hartman. I'm Deputy Commissioner for the City of Chicago in what's called its Neighborhood Development Division. And our department manages a litany of financial incentives for small businesses and usually help small businesses take those incentives through the legislative process of the City of Chicago. So I'm more than happy to engage in the panel, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague.
Good morning. Is this on? Can you guys hear me? Oh. Good morning. Good morning, y'all. Okay. My name is Bernita Johnson Gabriel. I'm the Executive Vice President for Neighborhood Initiatives and Strategic Initiatives at World Business Chicago. That division was started a little over a year ago because when you guys think of World Business Chicago, you think of all the big stuff. You think of all the headquarter relocations, you think of all the downtown business expansion, but you don't necessarily think of neighborhoods and how we move the needle in neighborhoods. So my job is to make sure that we're focusing on neighborhoods and making a difference in neighborhoods.
Great. My mic works. That's fantastic. I got lucky. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Calvin Holmes. I'm president of the Chicago Community Loan Fund, as my VP of Economic Development, Maurice Williams, mentioned. But before I tell you more about who I am, I just want to say how excited I am to be on the panel with Tina moderating. Tina and I have done lots of work together over the years, and Jim and Bernita are some of my fantastic colleagues who've done amazing work over the years, and I really respect their body of work. So a little bit about the Chicago Community Loan Fund. We are a nonprofit. I jinxed myself. We are a nonprofit community development financial institution which, to break it down for many of you who are not familiar with CDFIs, we're essentially a bank that doesn't have checking accounts, savings accounts, or CDs, or any of those typical retail services that you would get from your community bank around the corner. We make mortgage loans to a variety of different folks who are trying to make our community stronger. A number of our partners produce affordable housing, both multifamily and small residential properties, including investor owners of small residential properties. We have a number of nonprofit customers who are doing amazing work in the community facility space, arts and recreation, education, cultural institutions, and just regular old nonprofit headquarter and program space. We're here today because we have a new initiative called Activate Retail, where we're trying to help our communities have more, better, higher quality goods and services so that people that live in communities such as the South and the West Sides can actually walk to their business district, their retail corridor, and enjoy the quality of life that folks in the stronger parts of the city and the region do. And we have a number of customers who are really interesting, innovative business owners, but they're social enterprises, sort of like Free Beginnings, as Kristen exampled earlier on the slide. So we think of those four sectors, the housing, the community facilities, the office and retail, and the social enterprises being four of the most essential building blocks to creating healthy, vital, dynamic communities. And this comprehensive approach is how we're trying to help create communities where people thrive across metropolitan Chicago. So you'll notice I didn't mention small business finance, and that was for a reason. We're not a traditional small business lender. There are a number of small business lenders in the room, including Manny Flores with Summer Corps 504, and you'll hear from him a little bit later, and some others. We try to be strategic and tactical people, and we don't think that's necessarily our netting, and we know that we have a number of fantastic mission-driven small business lenders in Metro Chicago. So even though it's not our core capacity, we do try to partner with those small business lenders and refer our small business customers as they come through our pipeline to folks like Summer Corps 504, Chicago Neighborhood Initiatives, Axiom Chicago, and many others. So even if we can't help you with a small business loan, we will definitely try to put you in the hands of a capable, responsible, ethical small business lender as quickly as we possibly can. So that's a little bit about CCLF. And I'm really delighted to be here this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So as you can see, between the four of us, we've done quite a bit of work over the years when it comes to community development at large and real estate development specifically. I think the way to best start the conversation, though, and what we're going to try to do here this morning, I think, is have a general conversation about what can we be doing as we think about preparing for such a fund as the Opportunity Fund, the Opportunity Zone work, and how and what should we as developers, small business owners, and those of us who do this work from a nonprofit, a city, a for-profit lens, be thinking about when it comes to preparing the landscape for big investments and big opportunities through the Opportunity Fund. So the general question, how should we be getting ready? And I'm going to pose it to everybody all the time, so please jump in and give it a response, and if you don't, I will call you by name.
Well, you know what, I'm going to get started with that one, because when people come into the city, we have a litany of financial incentive programs, but we have a few in which, the vast majority of developers usually come and tap our resource for. One is the negotiated land sale, which the city literally sells its city-owned property for some negotiated price. We also have a program called the Small Business Improvement Fund, and it is literally a program in which you can get a reimbursement back for development and renovation in terms of your small business or your small business storefront. And the reason I touched on those two is because the foundation also for Opportunity Zones has to be a baked project. I think that should not get lost today. What's essential for any project that comes in for our incentives and for the city, what's going to be essential if you're going to pitch a particular project for an Opportunity Zone funder, is that you have to have a project that has done the homework, a project that has determined what its costs are, a project that has determined how it's going to source the uses of that cost, and how it's going to fund that project. And I'm also going to add this. One of the things that people think, particularly in this climate, is that you have to have everything buttoned up in terms of how you're gonna source your projects. What opportunity zones actually do is still put you at the table, even if you have clearly identified a gap. It's one thing to say, I've got a great project, I think we wanna do this because it's a great ideal, it's gonna solve world peace. And I'm using that intentionally. It's another thing to say, I have a button shop in which I know my numbers, in which I know how much it's gonna cost to get this thing going, and I can project intelligently what this project is gonna do. Does that make sense? What needs to happen is that articulation. What I think the climate has done today is literally armed innovators and dreamers and entrepreneurs. Just say, if you have that idea, put it together. You don't necessarily need to have every single dime accounted for, but you need to know what every single dime is needed in order to do that project. Does that make sense? Okay.
Very good, thank you.
So I'd just like to, not to be too redundant, we've been immersed in opportunity zones for the last 9 months pretty intensely as we're trying to get our arms around it at the Chicago Community Loan Fund. So one of the things that we continue to hear in a number of the rooms in which we sit is that the individuals and the corporations and the networks of individuals that have capital gains that they want to deploy individually or collectively are a pretty risk-averse group, that they don't intend to lose their principal or the return or the interest on their investment. So to Jim's point and Kristen's point, if you've got a new idea or an untested concept that isn't sitting on a rock-solid business plan with great assets backing up the idea and lots of other partners are right around you, and a real proof of concept compelling document, you're probably not going to be a great candidate for this tool. There are other places for that type of financial support and investment, but this isn't the one. This isn't the sort of subsidized rich uncle that's going to let you do some R&D on his or her dime, right? So just to continue to reiterate that, because we continue to hear from some of our inquirers that opportunity zones is going to be some amazing flexible pool of money. It's just not that. So I want to actually pivot just a little bit and talk more about some externalities that are important for attracting opportunity zone investments, as well as any other type of investment to a business quarter, or a business district, or a retail
Well,
node.
let's bring in and make a comment first, and then you could pivot, Calvin. Thank you.
So I'm gonna come at this from a little bit of a different perspective, because these are the deal makers. I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about what it looks like on the ground. So just think of yourselves, everybody's been saying this is an investment, right? So think of yourself as an investor. What would you wanna invest in? You wanna invest in corridors that are moving in the direction of being viable, right? So I would encourage you to do some of the things that many of you are already doing. For example, managing special service areas. Get involved, understand what their budgets look like, understand what the activities are. If you want to see some banners on your street, then get involved. Make sure that you're raising your voice so that people understand that that's what you want to do. If you want to encourage people to come to your communities by having events and festivals and things like that, get involved and make sure those things are happening. A lot of times when you drive around the city, we think, oh, the city has paid for that street to look the way it looks, or the city has paid for this particular piece of art. That is not the case. So we have to be involved. There are also other programs that the city provides to small businesses. Make sure that small businesses are aware of those programs and the lenders, so that they help to beautify the facades of those businesses and make it look attractive and make people want to invest. And then lastly, I'll just leave with making sure that we identify the assets of our communities. Many of our communities have wonderful assets, primarily cultural. There's no place that I've ever lived that has the culture that Chicago neighborhoods have. We have to lift that up. We have to lift up the housing. You got great housing stock in these neighborhoods. So those are some of the things that I would recommend, because if you're an investor, think of what you are going to put your money into.
That's right, Perdita.
Right.
And Perdita is so incredibly modest. So for a number of years, she was the executive director of the Quiet Communities Development Corporation, which was responsible for the area roughly between 22nd Street and 51st Street from the lakefront over to the Dan Ryan. It used to be called Mid-South, but when she got there, she gave it a fancier name. But she's really an example of one of the more esoteric and abstract things that an investor, a retail brand, a national chain needs to connect with when they're even considering a neighborhood. There's just a simple word, it's leadership. There needs to be a chamber of commerce that's really strong, or economic development court like QCDC, and I'll name a few others in a few minutes, who are sort of orchestrating a plan, something that says to the investor community that, to Bernita's phrasing, this community is on the make, it's on the move, it's going in the right direction. So if you are a business owner in that corridor, it behooves you to activate your chamber. If it's dormant, get up with your nonprofit local community quarterback that can serve as your leader and help you connect with the retail universe. Those leaders also serve as brokers between the interested investor, the local elected official, whoever the zoning folks are, other agents inside the neighborhood who might create some challenges for that prospective investor from a NIMBY perspective, but also create opportunities. The local community quarterback can help that retailer find the right people to work in the store, and also provide with marketing assistance, a group that can help the retailer know that if the foot traffic doesn't materialize the way projected, that you've got a partner that's going to help the community know that the business is there, that it needs to be supported, and they've got to get out and open their wallets and their pocketbooks.
Right, I think you bring up a good point, Calvin. I think what we're trying to say, I think collectively in these last two comments particularly, is if you have a great idea, there is a lot of opportunity in the ecosystem around Chicago to help that idea come to fruition. So don't be intimidated. All right, we got the City of Chicago, World Business Chicago, and Chicago Community Loan Fund up here, and it can be, these dudes can be intimidating. These guys have done some great work, but these are friendlies, I promise you. These are friendlies.
Especially me.
Yes, absolutely, Bernita, most friendly. But these are representative, however, of lots of other supports and resources. To Calvin's point about developing marketing, getting involved in other things, Bernita's talking about getting involved in the chamber. Not just so you can worry about banners, because maybe your idea has nothing to do with banners. However, what it does do is it helps you develop the ecosystem around your idea. It helps you get connected with the friendlies that you see up here and many other things so that you can actually make sure your idea does work with the numbers, right? So when we're thinking about that, what are options?
I did want to put another idea in the mix, which I think a number of either property owners or landlords or business owners feel like it's sort of outside of their purview, but it's this idea around being a steward of the area where your business is located. And if your corridor is not clean, if you have, I hate to say it, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to any of us, but if you have open air drug sales on your corridor, you might be willing to put up with it, but a brand new investor from another part of the country, another part of the region, is not going to open her pocketbook and spend her hard-earned dollars and take a chance on your corridor. That's just too intimidating, right? If you've got lots of, I'm going to say something that hopefully will make you laugh, unattractively boarded up properties next to your business, it's a disincentive for investment. So again, it's important to either create or activate or connect with your local corridor co-quarterback. There's often groups that you may not even know about who are there and trying to move your neighborhood forward, or your local chamber, because there are all kinds of new and interesting decorative board-up concepts that you can work with them to have applied to properties next door to you. You've got interesting storyboards that you can now, using vinyl, you can put into the empty and unattractive storefronts. You've got all kinds of signage and landscaping and streetscaping that you can work with your local economic development corps or your chamber to put in place in your business district to make that place attractive. Because if it's not attractive, you are not going to get the kind of investment that you seek and the types of retailers in your corridor.
I just want to add a little bit to that. So World Business Chicago is working with a number of community organizations who have started to look at these abandoned buildings. And what we're finding is that there are actually tax incentives for folks to leave their buildings abandoned, and we don't like that. And so we, along with probably about 20 different not-for-profits across the city, are looking to figure out how we're going to attack this, because this is not right. These are folks who caused our quarters to look horrible. It's blight, and it's gone on for decades, and they get a tax incentive for it. And so just be on the lookout for more news on that. We are looking to make sure that, one, that tax incentive is removed, and two, there is some action or some responsibility for you leaving blight in communities.
I want to add one more thing. There's also a tax incentive to activate those abandoned buildings. We have a program called the Tax Abatement Program. Actually, we collaborate with the county in terms of executing and taking it through our legislative process. But literally what it says is that usually on commercial and industrial property, there's a 25% tax rate assessed to your property. You have to pay property taxes. There's a program that says if you activate a building that's been abandoned for 2 years, you will get a chance to reduce that tax rate from 25% to 10% for 10 years. And then it only goes up to 15% in year 11 and only 20% in year 12, and you can renew it. So there is an incentive to not only activate those buildings, but to jump on something that Benita and Calvin were talking about. You're right, you have to be active in your community, but one of the other key resources you have when you connect to your community partners is you can get information in terms of where that momentum is already happening in the city of Chicago. And as you guys know, if you travel through the south or west sides of Chicago, there is a number of blighted and abandoned buildings, but there's also a lot of good activity happening in those areas as well. And you can connect to that activity. As a matter of fact, when the city of Chicago put together the census tracts, one of the things that they were thinking about was trying to attach those census tracts for opportunity zones in areas where there's activity that has started already. I used to work for an organization called the Greater Inglewood Community Development Corporation. And I remember when Whole Foods was proposed at 63rd and Halsted, it was a national joke. I'm not making that up. Now, you have development clamoring to get over on 63rd and Halsted. So, and community organizations were a part of that effort in terms of making that happen, and that's happening throughout the city. One of the things the city of Chicago wants to do is, it doesn't manage opportunity zones. It does have this, and I want you guys to write this down if you're writing. cityofchicago.org opportunity zones, there's an interactive map in which you can literally click on that interactive map and type in an address, and you will see if that particular address is in an opportunity zone.
I use it regularly. It's a fantastic tool.
So, I just want to make sure that was understood, that there are areas where things are happening now, and investors are going to be attracted to that, and there's incentives that the city of Chicago and Cook County has to help activate abandoned buildings in those areas, and that's something to be taken advantage of.
Great, thank you. When we think about if everyone who's in the audience represents a singular idea of something that they want to leverage potentially an opportunity fund for, whether it's a business or real estate deal, what is the best way for that to happen when it comes to the neighborhood? Do singular ideas work? Do compiling ideas work? And if so, how do we go ahead and make those things happen? May we rephrase the question?
I'll jump in. So again, the lens through which I'm going to respond to the question is not at a project level. It's really about the business district and the business corridor. One of the things that we're seeing in our work, the Chicago Community Loan Fund added office and retail in a much more robust way to our program about 2.5 years ago with the launch of our Activate Retail Initiative. Really happy with some of the early and notable successes. We were a pre-development lender when Jim was at Greater Inglewood CDC and the Inglewood Square Shopping Center at 63rd Homestead, which he referred to changes to Whole Foods. We helped reposition and spruce up the Washington Park Plaza Shopping Center at 51st and Cottage Grove. We're just overjoyed that we also had a chance to advance the new Jewel Osco with pre-development equity-like financing at 61st and Cottage Grove. Some of you, how many of you live in Woodlawn? How many of you are Woodlawn residents? Any Woodlawn residents in the house? Okay, so you've probably been to Daly's at least once in your life, right, sir? So, you know, Daly's has moved across the street to a brand new development called Woodlawn Station, which Preservation of Affordable Housing has just brought online. The retail spaces, the 5 retail spaces on the lower floor, benefited from our financing, and we're happy to be a part of that. And last but not least, down in Pullman, I know Andrea was here earlier, Andrea Reed. So not too far from your office, Andrea, in Pullman, the Gateway Retail Center at 111th and Bishop. There are new retailers in a food court that Kristen mentioned earlier with Lane's Bakery that's opening up soon. And those last two, Woodlawn Station and with the Pullman Retail Center, we provided financing through our alliance with the Chicago Trend Initiative, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But we are really pleased with what we've been able to accomplish in just 30 months with our new Activate Retail Initiative, pre-development construction, and then permanent financing. But we've got a ways to go. But what we're seeing is an isolated project that folks want to be in a corridor that has a lot of eyes on it, a lot of activity, a lot of foot traffic, a lot of vehicle traffic. Hopefully it's got a bus line that has high ridership going through it, that it's next to a transit station, a multimodal transit hub, or something along those lines. A corridor where they know that they're going to be people. And it's important to try to, if you're in a corridor that's relatively sleepy right now, then to work with the groups that I've mentioned before to try to activate it so that it becomes a destination zone. And we all know with consumers, with the era of e-commerce, we barely want to leave our house to do any shopping. So if we do, when we do, we want to go to a district where we can take care of 3 to 5 stops in the same corridor, park the car or get off the bus or get off the train, and take care of 3 to 5 different things. So increasingly we're looking at how can we aggregate our businesses and our opportunities in a thriving retail district. So that's just one idea to keep in mind in response to your question, Tina, is how to either activate your district or locate in a district where there is more momentum building.
Absolutely.
Just to remind people too, we're talking a lot about businesses and commercial corridors, but opportunity zones are also residential, which is important for some of our neighborhoods because we're losing population, right? So we need to build density. Again, retailers follow density. They like to look at rooftops, right? So that's another advantage. And then I'll just say, Kristen hit on it a little bit earlier in talking about businesses in opportunity zones and the revenue that they have to generate. And so what we're being told, I think, from the last update is if you're, say for example, you're a manufacturer and you're manufacturing a product in the zone, but your revenue is coming from the fact that you sold it, that's okay now, according to the latest ones. I don't know if it's going to change, like Kristen said, but we were kind of concerned in the beginning that the revenue, that because you were getting revenue from the sale of your product outside of the zone, that it wouldn't count. But it's my understanding now that it does. So that's another excellent point for our manufacturers, particularly those that are in industrial corridors that we care about.
Very good. So in thinking about your individual project and how it relates to your neighborhood, what I hear you saying, and I only know this because of language, but is that being part of a bigger neighborhood plan for development is in your best interest. Is that correct? And so from your expertise over the years, how does that neighborhood plan get created? Who decides, who pushes that, who comes up with that neighborhood plan idea?
I'll jump in just because of my background working with the Community Development Corporation on the south side of Chicago. You know, Inglewood, I think one of the things people would be surprised about Inglewood is how organized it is. It is an extremely well-organized community. And what that community did was literally put together a quality of life plan. And within that quality of life plan, you have the community meeting repeatedly over a number of years, literally suggesting and adding to what that community needed. One of the things that it talked about was it being a food desert. And one of the things and one of the reasons I think that Whole Foods actually came into that community because they had an organized group to talk to before they got there. As a matter of fact, as I recall, and Calvin, you might help me with this, it was about a 3-year process of literally the CEO of Whole Foods engaging the community and literally
Sounds about right.
working with the community in terms of what the store should look like, what the products should be in the store, what local entrepreneurs are actually going to have their products in the store. So part of what you're suggesting is that you do need community buy-in on your projects. And one of the first places to start, if you're even beginning to socialize a project, is at the local community meetings and engaging with the community.
Right, and I'll just try and think about it from a lender's perspective. So when we're underwriting a transaction, we're trying to get a sense of where are the backup truths should the pro forma, should the business plan not work out, right? So if we know that we've got the local economic development corporation, like Greater Southwest, or Greater Inglewood Community Development Corporation, or Quad Community Development Corporation, or Far South CDC, or even locally here, the Auburn Gresham CDC or Greater Chatham Initiative. If we know that they are the stewards of a thought-through plan that has community buy-in, they've sold this forward motion, this community on the move, to homeowners, to renters, to business owners in the community. We expect that if the store that we have a real estate loan against starts to struggle, the numbers just aren't there, the foot traffic doesn't show up, we expect for all of those agents, all of the community development corporations, the chambers of commerce, the local workforce development agencies, the elected officials who've been consulted and conferred with during the planning process, right? The homeowners who come to the town hall meetings, right? The small business owners who come out late at night and put their ideas on the table about what the plan is going to be. We assume that the local quarterback or quarterback network for the community is going to stand up and get out the word that this store that we fought so hard, this shopping center that we spent 5 years trying to recruit to our community is failing, and we can't let that happen. And they're going to get the feet through the door to reverse the negative trend. That's what we're counting on as a lender in this situation. And then I think that the national brand or the regional brand or the out-of-neighborhood investor that was recruited into the community is counting on the same thing, that if the numbers don't pan out to the best of our analytics, then all of those community stakeholders are going to rally around that location to make it successful at the end of the day. It's an intangible benefit, but it's really important to have it in place.
I would just say that having done the same thing within the Bronzeville area, there were 16 communities and neighborhoods, primarily on the south and west sides, that went through this quality of life planning, which took over 1.5 years, that brought in people from the community.
And we really should give the Local Initiative Support Corporation.
Yeah, Local Initiative Support Corporation was the one, and it was called the New Communities Program.
AKA LISC.
AKA LISC, right. So, so that's where that came from. But I would also encourage you, and I know people don't like politics, but you have to get involved with your local elected officials. You have to understand, and you have to inform.
There's a way to do it
what you
without a
want them
campaign
to do.
contribution, right?
Yes, there is absolutely a way. So
I'm looking at former Alderman Flores sitting right in front of me.
many of them have, I'm sure that the majority of them at least have monthly meetings. And they all have office hours at least once or twice a month where you go in and you talk. But it's important to go to those monthly meetings to hear what's going on, to express what you want to see going on, because after all, they represent you. So I know that, folks don't want to, I don't want to be involved with an elected official. You have to. It's your neighborhood. They're representing you. You need to get involved and tell them what you want.
Yeah, to follow up that point about aldermen, for most of the projects that you probably have in mind, you will need the alderman, at least at this point, you will need the alderman to sign off on in one way or another, some sort of permit, some sort of license, something or other. And so do your friendly engagement and outreach early so you can be developing the relationship so they can understand the heart of what you bring not just the numbers and the actual ask for a transactional thing you're doing. That's my recommendation in that space. Okay, moving on. I think one of the things we're thinking about is neighborhood plans exist in lots of neighborhoods across the city, particularly in the neighborhoods where these opportunity zones are already been created. So our encouragement to you is get involved with those plans. If you need help finding those plans, I mean, Kristen is a resource that's invaluable to you in this process, but so are all of we, and we're happy to share that later. But following that is, what if what I want for my community
Gina,
is
just
not
one-
on that plan?
One technical point about
Please.
plans, and I'm going to put Jim on the spot, unfortunately, Jim. So if I recall correctly, a couple of years ago, the Department of Planning and Development for the city went through a very extensive local area market.
Yeah, we do have that. However, I'm not going to mitigate the point that it just makes sense to go meet people and go and meet the communities that in which you are thinking about making an investment and get the synergy that comes along with that. But yes, you guys can easily reach out to me and get access to those plans, so I can certainly point you in the right direction in terms of going to the true authors of those plans so you can have a conversation.
Thank you. So what I was referring to was, what if the idea that I have, the investment that I want to ask for, the thing that my dream I want to bring to life, is not represented in the plan that's been created in my community, or can't be supported by the community in which I want this thing to come to fruition to, because the demographics are real and don't allow for that. What do we do? How do we reconcile that kind of thing? How do I reconcile that my idea doesn't fit into this neighborhood plan? How do I reconcile that what I need to or want to have happen in my community cannot be supported by the demographics in that community? What should we do then?
That's a tough question, Tina, right? So I'll
Absolutely, I defer. I just so we know, I put them all in a very difficult spot on purpose because Kristen has asked for us to engage in this particular point, so we're gonna try to labor through. So give us some grace if you would.
Step out on a limb off the top of my head. So if you will need the point that I think Bernita made earlier, or might have been Jim, if you need a zoning variance, if you need some kind of accommodation from the city of Chicago, and you've got an idea that your local elected official is not supporting, then I think you've got to spend a lot of shoe leather trying to get that local elected official on the same side of you for now. Mayor Lightfoot has said that she's going to work on the automatic prerogative. We'll see how well she does. But today, winning over your local elected official still is really important if you need any kind of largesse from the city whatsoever. If you don't, and you are facing some kind of let's imagine it's a NIMBY situation, whether this idea is just as unpopular to not in my backyard. You are in a neighborhood that's it's a bedroom community, it's very quiet, the people that live there are very faith-driven, and your idea runs against their principles and their desire for quiet enjoyment. You own it out, you don't need a zoning variance whatsoever, you don't need a parking permit, you don't need anything from the city. But it's a use that the neighbors around you don't want. In that case, I think you try to find other allies that can convince the neighborhood that this is to their benefit. So your local economic development group, your local housing development group, your local chamber of commerce, other well-known leaders in the community who you can convince that you're going to create jobs, you're going to improve the tax base, or you're going to build a park next to your facility that's going to be a win for the kids so they can play baseball or basketball or something like that. But having, to Jim's point, the humility to know that you've got to reach out to people to get them aligned with your idea to try to sell it to the other folks who are opposing you or the elected official.
I would say that I'm going to look at it from two different perspectives. One, the national or regional retail perspective, where we have folks in our neighborhoods that want a particular retailer, and the retailer is not particularly interested in coming to our communities, and what you can do for that. And that sometimes is because the formulas that they look at are, it's kind of like putting a circle in a square box, right? And so what we have to do is we have to show them other types of numbers. And one of the numbers that they particularly pay attention to is what's called leakage. So it's where is that, for that particular product or service that they have, folks are actually going somewhere else and spending lots of money to get it. And so that sometimes changes their mind because they're looking at income, they're looking at education, they're looking at home ownership, they're looking at a bunch of other things that sometimes our communities score poorly on. But if you can make the case that they can make money, and it takes a long time and it takes a lot of energy to do that, but it can be done. Now I'll go to the next scenario where you are a small business owner and you have an idea or a concept and it's not taking traction. You're in the business of making money. So if your if your concept is not being supported by folks who need to pay you, you either need to think of another concept or go somewhere else. Because the bottom line is you gotta make money. So just keep in mind that if it could be a great idea, it's just not gonna be in the neighborhood you think it should be in. Do your research. There may be 2 neighborhoods down where, you know, you're gonna be profitable. So that's what you need to keep your eye and your lens to. But always, your first priority is to make money. So I'll leave it with that.
That was some real talk.
Keeping it real, Bernita, thank you.
Can't say more than that.
Okay, great. When does it make sense, if your numbers aren't exactly up to speed for an investment, does it make sense at that point to find a collaborative effort of some sort where together you could make things work? Because as many of us would know, there's a number of either business ideas, community ventures, different sorts of things that our communities need that maybe our communities cannot support on their own, at least right now. And so when would it make sense for folks who have one of those ideas where they can't seem to get all the numbers to get to a profit margin that's going to be great for this type of investment, when does it make sense for them to find a collaboration? Or is that even ever a good idea?
Well, I think it's always a good idea. You know, you should have, wise man has many counsel. You should always have a lot of people on your team that you can reach to get to that point that Benita eloquently talked about in terms of making sure your idea can make money. At the end of the day, that's what it is about. And some ideas just don't. And I think it gets lost sometimes that when you land on my ideal doesn't make money, it says something that you did your homework. Okay, at least I know now. And let me either pivot my ideal, let me expand my ideal, let me think of a new idea. That's not always a bad thing to realize before you launch. It doesn't work. And so I think you always need to have support and collaborators around you in order to help you quickly get to that point. If that makes sense.
And since we're on the real talk train, I do think that it's helpful to be honest with yourself or with your other principals about whether or not what you're trying to do can sustain itself or get off the ground altogether. But I think for one of the things that we try to do with our customers is to make them feel comfortable so that they trust us and that they relax, and we can have an honest conversation about the viability of the idea or the business or the development, right? Because it's really important, to Jim's point, to gather as much information as you possibly can. So there's so many places where you can turn to get real-time feedback on the viability of your concept, right? You've got real estate brokers who are doing trades every day in and out in your local market, and they see what's working and what's not working, right? I know that a number of us have some concerns about our elected officials, but the Alderman's office is a great repository for what's working in business in the community. The many economic development corporations and chambers of commerce that try and support our neighborhoods across the city are fantastic places to turn to for information. Your local lenders, the community bank that's in your neighborhood if you have one, the CDFIs that serve your community are constantly collecting data on what they're seeing that works and what's not working, what trends are relevant or not. So these are just a handful of sources that you can turn to, but the bigger your tent is, and I know that there are folks who have proprietary information you have to figure out you can trust, I recognize that, but the more folks that you can talk to, particularly in confidence about what couldn't work with your business, the sharper your ideas will be and the more successful and sustainable they'll be. So reach out and have trusted partnerships and advisors.
Oh, just one caveat to what has been said. We've been talking a lot about retail, we've been talking a lot about small businesses, but we haven't really gotten into folks who are looking for procurement opportunities. And that's where it's a great time for us to not look at each other as competitors and to look at each other that we can partner so that we can go after larger contracts. Because many times what happens is if you as an individual, the contract is, you don't have the capacity. But if you are joint venturing with someone or partnering with someone, then you go after that contract together, and that's how you get in the door for procurement opportunities with larger institutions.
I think a good example that might be top of mind for many of you is what's it called, Grenada Lakeside, the group of companies that came together for the Presidential Center, 4 or 5 firms, all immediately got together to be stronger as a unit, as a group, as opposed to just individually, for a multi-million-dollar contract.
Very good. So we're going to wrap up here. I think it's about that time, but I just want to say, I think that as you have a project, my encouragement to you is to keep that project in an open hand and begin to shop it out amongst the community and find out who we can collaborate with, what are your opportunities, when doesn't it work, et cetera, et cetera. When you hold something too tight, it tends to break. And so my encouragement to you is to make sure you keep it with an open hand, keep an open mind as you continue to build it.
And if it really is that sensitive and that preparatory, then you've got all kinds of non-disclosure agreements that you can have trusted advisors and partners and other collaborators sign.
Yep.
Those aren't foolproof, but at least it gives you something to fall back on should they violate your trust.
Very good. So this is the first time we've had this conference, and we are really pleased that you are here. What I'd like to know from the panel is, when does it make sense for us to come to these kinds of conferences, and what other ones would you recommend people spend their time attending?
That's an interesting question. I default to the more the merrier, so as much as your calendar allows, it gives you a chance to network, to meet new people, to get new ideas, to see what's going on in the field, both at the national level, the regional level, and local level. There are a whole raft of new opportunity zone conferences that are happening across the country. Some of them are pretty expensive. There are lots of webinars and seminars you can plug into as well that are lower cost and easier to access. That's a huge open-ended question. There are lots of conferences, forums.
On purpose.
So stay plugged in. It's not, if you want to grow and thrive, it's good to pull your head out of the sand and be connected to the ecosystem around you. There's a lot of dynamism happening right now.
I would say, I would agree, lots of conferences, but I would say one of the most important things you can do is do as much research and homework as you can to understand what incentives are out there that you can actually benefit from. The city has a ton of programs. It's very hard for them sometimes to communicate that information to get it down to the level that it needs to be. You've got Summer Corps here that has some fantastic programs that you'll hear about later. So I would encourage you to do that. And Kristen allowed me to make a plug today for Shy Biz Hub. You guys write that down, shybizhub.com. That is a new portal that we just launched last week. It is a one-stop shop for small businesses, so it gives you all the information that you need when you're looking to start, grow, or sustain your businesses. So if you go on there, you're going to find folks like Summer Corps if you're looking for money. You're going to find the city if you're looking for information on permitting or zoning. So there's a whole wealth of information. So aside from my plug, I would just encourage you to just do your homework and do your research to find out what types of programs can help you grow your businesses.
As a follow-up to the plug, you should have received this directory when you came in today, and you'll see particularly Bernita's plug for Shy Biz Hub. The address and a little blurb is here on page 5, but everyone who's represented here today, there's a bit more information about who we are, how to get in contact with our organizations at least, also in this directory. And that's true for all the panels today.
So let's also talk about one other thing, right? Before I pass the mic to my brother Derek here. There was a mention of those outside influences, or those blocks that are so-called hot, the hot blocks when you're developing. I call it the Pookie and Ray Ray factor, right? It's the Pookie and Ray Ray factor. Us looking at your faces, us in this room, we cannot be dissuaded from investment by the Pookie and Ray Ray factor. We have to meet Pookie and Ray Ray in the middle of the block, just like we did as kids. So how do you do that? How many of us go to CAPS meetings? How many of us know who the watch commander is in our community? There you go. So there's tactics that we can employ to be more effective as community developers, as engagers of the community. So it was a little disheartening, and that's why I said I'm going to be the interpreter for Calvin. I don't want us to be dissuaded by the Pookie and Ray Ray factor. I want us to face it head on, because there's nothing more disheartening is if we cannot make investments in our own community because we don't feel safe. And then what we do, you know what we do next? It becomes sad. We become followers of the pack instead of leaders of the pack. Because the leaders of the pack, they're not worried about Pookie and Ray Ray. Are you with me? They're not worried about Pookie and Ray Ray. The leaders of the pack are going to lead, and they're going to march over Pookie and Ray Ray. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
All right, so hold on to your seat, because Kristen will tell you I'm going to get crazy today.
I'm sorry, what did you do?
I don't know. Miss Freeman asked me to give her my bio. I told her to watch John Shaft.
He really did. Like, and that's why I say we are a fun group. I don't want this to kind of be like the standard boring conference that you've been to in the past. I really do want you to get out of this as much as these panelists are willing to give you. So Eric, do you want to say what you do?
I guess I have to. So I'm a former banker. I was a banker for over 20 years. I was a commercial lender, commercial real estate lender. I'm proudly in the ex-banker witness protection program. And these folks are scared. You see, most of the bankers ran out of here when they saw me come up to the stage. Only Derek is brave enough to fool with me right now. But I run a program called the Urban Business School, and we do collaborative economics training. We help people learn how to collaborate to build communities, to rebuild our community, right? So we do a boot camp where we bring people together, we invest in real estate. As a matter of fact, Brother Derek here is an investor in the boot camp. He funds it. Matter of fact, I need some money today. We'll work that out later.
Me too, Eric. Me too.
Yeah. There's nothing better than having a white guy on the panel. We can all hit him up for cash.
Okay, wait. That's I have to. Derek, as MJ will also say, he is our white chocolate brother. Like Derek, while he is a white man, is not a white man. And I say this because I have worked with Derek again since prior to his position, and he understands a lot of the challenges within the communities that we serve. And he is, are you still a resident of South Shore?
He's in the hood, y'all.
He is in the hood. Derek is
I
a friend.
clearly chose the wrong seat on this panel. My name is Derek Walford. I'll be bringing it back to boring. I used to run the city's small business improvement fund. I've worked at the county. I've worked at IDA doing tax credits. And I currently work at Renovo Financial, who lends money to buy, fix, and sell, or buy, fix, and keep houses. They started a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution, which is a lender with a social purpose. That's the product I run. Currently we do, yeah, I'm a little hot here, but the C3 fund lends money to small landlords to keep properties, build wealth in neighborhoods. We're in low to moderate income census tracts in Cook County, so south and west sides and the suburbs you'd think. And with that, I won't hand the mic back to Eric.
So, in opening this up for neighborhood developers, and the reason there is a combination, so we have developer, broker, developing organization, and funder of developers. So this is a portion of the life cycle that needs to be in place in order for neighborhood development to occur. And so as we open up the conversation around developing within opportunity zones, but realistically developing in any blighted corridors, what are some of the things that you look for in identifying what types of projects that you want to participate in?
That's for me.
That is for you.
Well, first of all, Inner City Entertainment's mission is to develop in underserved areas, and we do it through entertainment, but our real goal is real estate development. And so our mission is all about going into these areas and helping to revitalize communities. So the idea of entertainment became one target because we know it's an area or an industry that our consumers patronize a lot. So why not? Because before there was ice theaters, there weren't theaters anymore in our communities, but we were going far outside of our communities to enjoy entertainment. It also meant that there were no jobs in those industries because they were outside of our communities. So it's like, let's put this all together. We can employ a lot of people and do good at the same time and build things. At the time, there were like a lot of gas stations in our community, there were liquor stores in our community, and we wanted to put up something that could visually change the landscape. So it's our purpose. What else you want me to say?
Where were your theaters?
Okay, we're sitting in one of the theaters that we built in 1977. ICE Theaters developed 3 multiplex movie theaters in the city of Chicago. Chatham was one. The other one was Lawndale on the west side, and then one on 62nd and Western Chicago Lawn. And you say, well, why don't you have it here? You know, the initial vision was one where we thought we would continue to span outside of the city of Chicago. But a lot of things happened, and it wasn't because the theaters weren't doing well. The mission, the vision was right on. Internally, we had a lot of things going on. We were partners with Cineplex Odeon when we started, about a year after we, I don't know if I want to get into all this story, but I will. But about a year after we developed the multiplex theaters, it was a $40 million project, it was 34 screens. Cineplex merged or was acquired by Sony. And that created just kind of havoc in our life. And then, and it created havoc simply because it wasn't a conflict in our agreements with Cineplex Odeon, but it was a conflict because Sony had their minority partner with Magic Johnson, and Cineplex had their minority partnership with us. They were 2 different agreements, and one was more of a royalty agreement. Ours was based in land ownership and development. So for all of the 3 ICE theaters, we had a 50% interest in the land, and we owned all of the buildings, all of the FF&E. And so structurally, it was different than Magic's deal. So they were 2 separate, so they didn't have to like figure out what they were gonna do. They just stayed, Sony just stayed with Magic because that was a different kind of relationship. And so that was trying. And then in, what was it? I think it was summer of 2000, the industry kind of kaputs a little bit. And most of the major theater circuits filed for protection under bankruptcy. And it was because leases were going up sky high, the revenue was really down that year. And so for most of the major theaters, they didn't own their properties. So those that owned their property, like Marcus, they were okay. We were okay. But the issue came, and this is a lesson learned, was that in our loan documents with GE Capital and Shore Bank, there was a technical a language that indicated if there was a bankruptcy anywhere in the partnership, well, ICE wasn't filing bankruptcy, ICE was paying millions and millions of debt service every year, but our partner filed. Major issue. The other issue was the city of Chicago had awarded us $9.75 million in TIF financing, and we never received a dime for 10 years. So those were two major things that happened that we sent us flying, trying to chase restructuring our deals, our partnerships, and that. It had nothing to do with the day-to-day operations at all. And then finally, we just decided, okay, we're out of here. So we got out of it here, but it was never out of our hearts in terms of what we're doing. So of course, now I'm developing a new project at South Shore, and I won't have those covenants in my loan documents, right?
I know that's right.
Amen. That's a lesson learned. And you know, we never thought we'd go bankrupt, or that they would go bankrupt, or anybody would go bankrupt. So we looked at that line, you know, we read our documents. It was like, oh, we're not going bankrupt. Nobody's going. And we didn't, but our partner did. So, you know, so that was a ride from an airplane ride when Sony had to come and tell us we about to do this, because they knew what was in our loan documents. So anyway.
So lessons from this developer, multiple partnerships, multiple structures of partnerships, multiple players at the table, documentation or situations that are dictating her documentation that didn't like they weren't her issues, but they became her issues.
Okay.
And so as you're pursuing any agreements, think through that. There's a lot of stuff we sign off on, thinking, oh, that's not gonna happen. That's not gonna be my situation. But what is the actual recourse if it does happen? And
Right.
that is what she was facing.
And I would say that I would never change what happened, because having a strategic partner in Cineplex Odeon created a dynamic that we didn't know would happen so fast. Obviously, my ex-husband and I, Don, were planning to put up movie theaters. We were looking at doing one at a time, and by partnering with Cineplex Odeon, once we got control of this property in Chatham, everybody was looking at us saying, who is this couple that think they can put up movie theaters? Who are they? And everybody else was trying to, all of the other main exhibitors, including Sony, were trying to outbid us on the land. But luckily, we had our documentation, and there was no way they can get it out unless we defaulted on the purchase and sale agreement. And so we got it. But Cineplex Odeon said, let me go talk to them. Instead of going around us, they actually came to us, and through that relationship, we were able to develop 3 multiplexes at once. So I never regret what happened. It's a learning lesson, and we move on. So what I have now is no real partners in the next deal. I've learned enough to, we can move along, and they can't come in at a certain level. You just have to protect yourselves against what they can and cannot do.
So for the rest of the panel, what are you looking for in the deals that you are looking to pursue?
I would, and you know, I have to give a disclosure. Lisa and I, we know each other well.
Yeah.
Was I technically one of your bankers back in the day? Maybe. We had a
About
soft.
Northern?
Yeah, when I was at Fifth Third.
No.
So we had, but
No.
we had a relation, but we have a relationship though.
Yeah.
So what I would say,
What kind of relationship?
you know, I love
You
you.
need to make it clear.
You know, I love you.
I don't
I
need
love
these
you.
people.
She learned her lesson from the previous documentation.
There you go. There you go.
You need frames and parameters around the relationship that you speak of, sir.
Well, I should say this, my ex-husband was an investment banker. So he knew every banker in town, and I think that's probably how we originally met. And it was actually a great part of the process that we didn't go into a bank asking for a loan. What we did is we went to banks with a business plan and said, take a look at it, let me know what you think and what your objections are. So we took we took time to let them review it and just tell us what you think. You know, so first group of people are, black people can get in the movie business? Really? Really? And, you know, we took the time with the bankers to educate them. So if they couldn't understand how we could get access to film, and because we were going to be a smaller circuit, we aren't the big boys. We don't have a big department with film buyers sitting in one room that cover all the country. So there are film buyers, independent film buyers that you can use, who you can hire to be your film buyer, to represent you, to get films. They have the relationships. And so we would bring them into the bank. So if now you get it, you get the film buyer piece. Okay, now what about security? You doing this in the black community? What are you doing? And you bring all of that stuff in. And it got to the point when you're doing this with a number of bankers that ultimately, they were like, you know, we really don't have an objection anymore. If there was an objection, the only objection would be that you'd never done it before. Voila, here comes Cineplex Odeon out of the sky. So
I just wanted to jump in really quickly to your point of having a business plan. I think that's super important. Sometimes as a broker, I get calls with people with great business ideas, but when I ask them a little bit more details about their business, they really don't have much analysis about what they're trying to do. And so a point when you say you walk into a bank and you had a business plan, these numbers will definitely verify if your business is a great idea. So I just wanted to just interject. When talking to a broker, one thing we want to know is, have you done a business plan for your business idea?
That's a great point. And I remember reading your business plan, Lisa.
Everybody said it was.
And I loved your business plan.
Right.
And what stood out to me is that in the theaters, you were going to have grape soda, strawberry soda, and cheese and corn. So I already knew you were setting yourself apart from all the other theaters out here on the street.
Well, it helped that I had my professional background, corporate background, was in advertising and working for a minority advertising agency. So there were certain information that I had access and understood, and incorporated a lot of that into my business plan. I've seen a number of business plans that people bring to me and say, look at this, and sometimes I can tell just because of the size of the business plan. And I'm not saying you have to make it long, and in fact, people encourage you to, stick within about 30 pages of information. Don't go exceed that. But in that 30 pages, it has to be powerful. And what I do, and what's in my business plan now, it's still 100 pages. It's 30 pages of the plan, but then there's all the other information that gets you to there. What I did this time was use the same lessons that I learned the first time, which is I got site control automatically, and we had gotten site control. That's what happened. When we got Chatham, that made everything else work. So once you get site control, we also made sure that we were zoned correctly. It wasn't zoned, the South Shore property was not zoned for the plan use, so we went through the zoning process. Got the architectural team together with expertise in the areas that I was going into. All of that was done. So in my plan, and the appendix of my business plan is longer than the plan. It has, the surveys, it has the demographics, and in my plan, I address all of that, but it has everything you would ever need, the zoning approval. So, because the first thing the bank wants to know, you own the site, you got site control, done. What's the zoning? Done. And just on and on and on. So it's not so much, the 30 pages is good, but it's what's behind there, behind that to support the claims you're making.
Awesome.
So my question for Moses was, when people are calling you as a broker, so I'm a business owner, broker, I'm calling you to help me find a site. What are you looking for to make you feel good as a broker to represent that small business tenant?
Well, the first question I ask is, what is their budget and which would be included in their business plan? Do they understand the cost of doing business and what they're trying to do? For example, I'm in the middle of doing a restaurant build out right now. And actually I was able to get my client, even though we're talking about opportunity zones, but he qualified for the Neighbor Opportunity Fund grant. And we were able to use those funds to kind of help him build out his restaurant. But one of the issues that people don't realize, to your point, is in order to do those type of build outs for your business, you need an architect, you need contractors, you need city approval, you need zoning. These are all things that business owners should think at the beginning of looking and trying to decide what site do you need. So for me, just understanding what your plan is, not just waking up one morning and say, hey, I want to do this, and you haven't done initial research on what your business needs and what the community needs.
What about you, Soper?
Too much feedback here. I agree with that. The business plan is critical. I do have one complaint. These stools, I'm too short to sit on this stool, so my legs are dangling, so you mess with my ego right now, so I'm a little discombobulated. I'm like dangling here. So if you can have like a chair for me, I appreciate it. Next year. Now let's continue. The business plan is critical. I would say the biggest takeaway that I would love for this group to get today is that you should exchange information with at least 2 to 4 other people in the room with you, right? Because Lisa is at the echelon, she's at the upper echelon of development. Yes, you are. Yes, ma'am. I'm gonna give you your proper due.
I'm a small business.
But you've done it. You've done it. There's folks in this room that have not done it.
That's what my financing. I'm a small business.
Okay, there you go. All right. She's a small business, y'all. But the vast majority of us, we're still piecing together our project, right? And when we're piecing together our project, a lot of times we as a people, we have a sandbox mentality where we want to build a castle, but we want to do it by ourselves. And unfortunately, your castle will never get built if you think you can do it by yourself. So Lisa, you know, she's done it, she has the experience, but a lot of us, we're still building that experience. So that's what I mean by you should definitely network with between 2 to 4 people. If you leave out of this forum today, out of this conference today, and you have not introduced yourself to at least 2 or 4 other people, shame on you. Truly, shame on you, because this is an opportunity for you to create synergies. I call it the broadcast and collide phenomenon. If you think about space, right? So let's just think about outer space. So what do we have in outer space? You got stars, what else? You got planets, and what else? I'm gonna keep going until somebody says it. You got, what wiped out the dinosaurs? You got asteroids, right? So what happens when asteroids collide with one another?
They explode.
They explode, but what is that explosion?
It creates.
It's energy. When asteroids collide, they create energy. So everyone in this room, you should be an asteroid. You should be colliding with one another. You should be telling everyone. I heard someone talk about NDAs and non-disclosures and confidentiality agreements. Put all that aside. If somebody's going to steal your idea, they're going to steal your idea. God blessed you with your idea for a reason. If it is truly a God-given idea that's yours and you own it, and the Lord ordained you to have that idea, there's no one else that can steal that idea. As a banker, I've met tons of people. They wanted me to sign an NDA, a non-compete, and all of this crazy business. And I'm like, I have a fiduciary responsibility to you, one, and the bank would never let us sign it. But I think people are too caught up in thinking somebody's going to steal something from them. It's that sandbox mindset. You got to get out of that. So you need a business plan. Kristen and I, we can help you with your business plan to help you scale up, because this is about scale. How many of us are in the food service industry? Any of us? What do you make?
Well, I have a market cafe, a convenience market cafe.
Okay, so you have a cafe, so you have a brick and mortar location now?
Yes,
You do, but before you got that brick and mortar cafe, what did you do?
I was a caterer.
You were a caterer, and before you were a caterer, what did you do?
I was a daycare provider for 18 years.
And are you a church-going sister? You're not? Don't worry about it, but did you sell the butter cookies on the side? What's that? You got your butter cookie recipe. I love it. So many of us, we start in business and we don't have our butter cookie recipe. So we want this brick and mortar, this big grandiose Taj Mahal monument to our ego to say, hey, we're doing it because we're on the street, we got an address, but we never had a butter cookie recipe. You never sold cookies at church on Sunday after service. So it's about scale. So to get to a movie theater, what do? You do? You got to show some videos in your basement. Let's make sure they're clean videos. All right? Let's make sure they're clean. R-rated, worst case. R-rated.
Well,
worst
Eric,
case.
I was gonna say, I support what you said about you gotta be able to talk to people. I can't tell you how many times people have come to me and said, I got this idea, and I don't understand what they're talking about because they're not disclosing what they're doing. And it's like, it's no way that I can help you if I don't even understand what the business is. And then you can't be afraid because you gotta keep talking to as many people as you can to find the resources. I mean, opening up a movie theater is not new. This is not new. Where we opened it up was new. You may have to look in your business plan and see what are you doing differently or how you're gonna do it differently. But opening a movie theater existed a long time before that. And so it was what we were doing. And then how do you support? You gotta think about how do you support putting a movie theater in a black community. I mean, this is what people were telling us. Why are you doing this? And lucky for us, Magic got his first theater up in LA, and we're in an industry where you can actually purchase box office numbers, so we could see what he was doing and say, damn, them numbers do look good. And but you got to talk to people. It's just crazy because you want people to vet out, and don't be offended if people say, I don't really like that part or that. Don't get, if you're that sensitive, this is not cut out for you. You've got to be able to talk and listen to what people are saying about what they like. Now, in our case, people just kept saying, I don't know why you want to do this. Why you want to do this? So we got so much negative feedback until we got it up. Oh, that's what you were talking about. So
the interesting thing, how you said you didn't have the support. So going back to one of the earlier panels when the question was brought about, what do you do if you're trying to bring something to a neighborhood that's not supportive? She got the support by getting data. She got the support by driving numbers. She got the support not on a charity basis of, oh, black folks need to go to the movies too. No, black people spend their money at the movies, and here is hard numbers to prove that. So one way to get the support is to show the money. Follow the money trail. The money trail will dictate and open a lot of doors that you knocking on alone won't necessarily open. So turn it over
But I just
here.
wanted to talk just for a brief second, because we sort of got Alicia up here, and I lend money to people, but I want them to have rehabbed a house before. I don't want the first guy. I just want to say, Eric is helping people who have not done a house yet or not done a renovation yet. So everyone in this room is at some place different in their career and on their path. So we've got people that are very sophisticated, we've got people that have done some things, and we've got some people that are just starting and figuring out, where am I, what am I trying to do? So I loved all the talk about meeting people, talking with other people. The first panel this morning, Greater Southwest, there's some of those groups, figure out how you can plug in. And there's all kinds of things out there you can do, you just have to figure out where to go. So beginning, intermediate, top level, everybody needs help.
yes.
Yeah, I think it's truly important about building a team and having the right people advising you on how to move forward. Sometimes I have to save investors and developers on their poor investments because they didn't have the proper research. As a commercial broker, I have access to a program called CoStar, which gives me data information such as income demographics, highway traffic, all those different numbers that you would need to present in your business plan. So yeah, the key thing is about networking. If anything, if you don't get anything out of this program, is like you said, Eric said, meet 3 or 4 people. Yes, the information is great, but who you meet in the room can definitely help you further your business endeavors.
Well, and I have an idea, where do I go next? That's the question I think people should ask. It's like, I want to do this thing, what are my next steps? There's a lot of resources in this room. People can say, oh, you want to do that? You should talk to so-and-so. Or you want to do that? You should talk to these guys.
And I think many people here may be in the real estate end of it, right? But just because of the conference, or maybe not. But you gotta learn, real estate is just not one thing. You know, there's commercial real estate, which I think sometimes people don't look at. And I'm more familiar with commercial real estate than I am with residential properties. And even with residential, are you looking at multi-unit buildings? Are you looking at single-family homes? You know, are you flipping it? You know, there's a lot. And I just had one of my best girlfriends. She's been a corporate lawyer forever, and she retired. I said, "You're retiring? You're too young to retire." But she decided she wanted to invest in real estate. So she did a lot of research. She went to all those little things, conferences to learn about different things and talk to people. And now she's bought a house and she's renovating that house and she's gonna flip the house. But everybody's got to do research. Everybody's got to put together some kind of plan. It may not need to be a business plan for a real estate kind of adventure.
By the way, if you're going to get real estate training, do not spend $10,000.
I heard
You can get real estate training for much less than that.
Yes.
You got to plug there.
Well, I mean, we should plug this guy.
Yeah.
Plug him.
Come on, Eric.
Eric apparently is not going to talk about what he's actually doing. We're in business school. I mean, I keep trying to tee it up for him, but he's not taking my bait. So if you want to figure out how to renovate a property and you're like, okay, I've never done this, I don't know how to do it, you should talk with Eric. Eric will help you. And Eric charges such a little amount of money that as one of his funders, I'm like, you gotta charge more.
Actually, I was in, well, I am in one of Eric's cohorts, and I must say the program is phenomenal. And I told him to his face before that you're undercharging for this program. I just took it just as a refresher, just for me as a broker in the industry, and the amount of knowledge that I've gained.
How much is it?
Yeah.
It's the total program is $500.
Okay, wow.
So $500.
$500.
Yes.
I'll charge you $10,000 and I'll put you in Eric's course.
There you go. Because let's and thank you for that. I mean, I owe all y'all money now. Let's think about this too. And you mind if I get controversial, Kristen? Can I get controversial for 2 minutes? 2 minutes, 1 minute? Can I get controversial?
Nobody's live streaming.
Kenny, you mind if I get controversial with you? All right. This was not made for us. Opportunity funds.
Wait. What is the this that you speak?
I'm thinking the opportunity funds. I thought the other slide was
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Let me look back here. Okay, this was made for us. The previous slide, opportunity funds, those funds were not created to be of benefit to indigenous folks. Am I keeping it real?
Yes, you are.
Let's keep it real. For us to succeed, what Derek just asked you, where do we go from here? And I want to harp on this until I turn blue in the face. You go from here by meeting someone else in this room. Your network is your net worth. And that's just not a cliche, that is the real deal. I am successful because of my network, because of people in this room that have supported me, people on this stage have supported me. They're my network. These opportunity funds were made for wealthy folks to come in and to do development and yet again take advantage of a blighted situation and make money off of poverty. Hold on, let me finish. I'm with you. I know the white guy's gonna whirl me back in. And I'll let him do it. But at the same time, none of us in this room are gonna be able to really participate until you sit down with Kristen and get a plan together. But your odds are gonna decrease dramatically if you are not connected with someone else to help you achieve that goal. If you think you're going to come through this conference and all of a sudden you're going to be a recipient of an Opportunity Fund grant or participate in an Opportunity Fund, you are solely mistaken, because you know what? I just heard that Jared Kushner has applied for Opportunity Funds, or he's a recipient.
Larry Levy had started.
Larry Levy, Larry Levy, Levy Restaurants. He does all of the catering for most of the sports arenas around the country. He owns 990 North Michigan. So these are the folks that are truly benefiting from these opportunity funds. Why? Because they have deep pockets, but more importantly, they have a network. They have a network. Yes, sir, go ahead.
My one comment when I'm trying to reel Eric in is this is a government program to try and get funds into underserved communities. So yes, it will be rich people that get benefit, but hopefully they invest in neighborhoods that need investment and have not gotten enough investment.
Well, they have to. That's kind of the
That's the
structure of
whole
the,
point.
that's the
Yeah.
whole point.
Well, but I want to make that point before we got too far out. The whole point is that we're trying to get the funds into areas that need it.
Right.
But with that being said, Derek, and we can debate this, brother, is that the folks that these individuals hire to do the work, so we got Brother Melvin Henley from PAC Leaders up in the back. Make sure you introduce yourself to Brother Melvin. He's an awesome general contractor. Are these individuals that get these funds, are they going to hire Brother Melvin to perform the work? Highly unlikely. Highly, highly unlikely. I know Lisa well. I know Lisa is going to bring Melvin on, or someone that looks like Melvin, to perform that work. Are you with me? Is this making sense? This is why this is critical that we form together to build relationships with one another so we can execute these projects. Kristen can talk to us till we turn blue in the face about the amount of lifting to get the woodlawn off the ground.
Is Digby still here? I think
Is Brother Digby still here?
What he's speaking to is one of the clients who catered coffee, but they were a recipient of the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund. And Summer Corps was involved in that process. It's hard. And we're not talking a lot of money. We're talking a little money. So when it boils down to multi-million-dollar deals, it becomes that much more difficult. Like, I'm working on a project that's about 1.2 million. I have talked to Steve Hall, who just snuck in from Lyft. They mentioned him earlier. I have harassed Jake about it. Eric has heard about this deal. Derek has heard about this deal for the last 2 years, prior to the opportunity zones being designated. And it so happened that my project falls into an opportunity zone. So understand that these conversations are long game conversations. And when they're talking about network, so Moses and I did a program, Project REAP, that Shavion, who is representing another nonprofit on the west side, also did. Met Eric on Instagram. Derek I've known just through working with small businesses through the Small Business Improvement Fund program. And I actually sat on a conference call with you for something with Northwestern's Black Alumni Association. So the network, like the network that you need to be working to cultivate, talk to the people by you. If you have not gotten, walked out this room with business cards, like Eric said, you've done yourself a disservice.
Well, most people in this room also, we take pride in being connectors. So you got an idea, I want to tell you who you should talk to next. It might not be me, it might be somebody else. It might be talk to Eric, it might be talk to Moses, it might be talk to Kristen, it might be talk to Lisa. But, a lot of us like putting things together. So if you have the energy to do something, it's a grind. I think that's what you're trying to say in a really nice way, Kristen.
Yeah, but I don't want to discourage people because
Yeah.
I tell people there's a lot of money out here. There's small business, the Small Business Administration, they have programs. There are state programs. There's opportunities done. There's new market tax credits. So what I see from my perspective is there's a lot of money out there. It's going to take time, but there's a lot of money available to do the kinds of things you want to do, especially if you're targeting traditionally underserved communities.
Just
So-
one other comment. The Opportunity Fund stuff is new.
Yes, very
So
new.
when the low-income housing tax credit came out, everybody was like, great, we're going to build a bunch of affordable housing. It took at least 2 years for people to figure that out. So I think we're about 1.5 years in on opportunity funds. I think people are getting an idea of what's happening. But it's going to take a little while, but hopefully, the idea is hopefully there will be even more funding available.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've got about 5 minutes left on this panel. One model we have discussed is the entertainment model. Moses mentioned the restaurant model. Are there any other models that, as folks may be considering development opportunities, that they should be looking at to consider? Here?
The easiest way to become an investor is to use an FHA 203K loan. That is the FHA's buy it and fix it up. It's an easy way to make equity. So I want to be a real estate investor? Okay, first thing to do, find a lender who can do an FHA 203K. Get that. If you're really smart, you'll buy a 4 flat. So you'll live for free, and the FHA will help you build the property. Once you've done that, then you rehab the property and you can come to talk with me or I don't know where our friend from Lima went or CCLF. There's lots of lenders then that will lend on real estate that you can do that you don't live in. But first thing, FHA 203K.
Does it work for commercial property?
1 to 4 unit residential. So almost everybody does a single family. I think if you want to dial it up, do a 2-3 floor flat.
You can't, there is a loophole in that, brother. You can do a 6 flat, you can deconvert the 6 flat to a 4 flat and run that through the FHA 203K program. So right now when you think about inventory in Chicago, because this is why I was asking earlier, why is it the rage? I should feel the rage coming out of the audience. You know, unless you guys are just in here to see the next showing of Avengers Endgame. You know, we all gonna see in the movie as it grew.
One thing that Eric didn't say, but I'm going to say, is that if you got a 6 flat, that might be $340,000. If you bought a 4 flat, that might be $400,000. So that's something to think about. But bug Eric. There you go.
Also want to add that residential and commercial definitely have to work together in developing a community. As he mentioned, we want owner occupants to rehab these blighted homes, and then we also want to have things for them to do in the community, such as entertainment. So these two industries, I mean, even though we're under the same umbrella, residential and retail all have to come together. And retail is definitely not dead. People are still getting out there shopping. It's all about what your business is and the experience that you give the consumer.
How many people live in Inglewood? Any Inglewood residents? There you go, awesome, power to Inglewood. Buy in Inglewood right now. How many folks like Bronzeville? Make sure I choke you up after this, right? I'm choke y'all out. The ship has sailed on Bronzeville. If somebody already given Moses license, Moses has license now to slap somebody if they say they're gonna buy something in Bronzeville. That ship has sailed. You can still buy, just to Derek's point, a 2-unit, 3-unit in Inglewood between $20,000 to $60,000, $70,000. There's still value to be added in Inglewood. There is no more value to be added in Bronzeville. This is what I'm getting at about having a pack follower mentality versus a pack leader mentality. We have a pack follower mentality. We have to get out of that. So how many people are going to talk to Moses or how many real estate agents? We got Sister Taquaya, we got Cheryl, we got a bunch of folks in here that are real estate agents. Talk to them, tell them you want to look at properties in Inglewood and even properties in Roseland. I'm getting bullish on Roseland.
South Shore?
And South Shore too. South Shore is getting tight. South Shore is getting tight. The inventory in South Shore is shrinking.
Okay,
But
all of the neighborhoods in Chicago.
except for Bronzeville. Except for Bronzeville.
Well, what about? Good afternoon. Okay, in case you missed the morning session, I told you guys I like interaction, so we will try again. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right. So this, for me, is kind of the bread and butter of the conference. This is the capital stack panel. This is the money. This is the money team. This is the money team right here. So realistically, what capital stack refers to within real estate deals is the order and the type of money that you're getting to do projects. And what someone alluded to before with some of the grant programs, like the City of Chicago's Neighborhood Opportunity Funds, people not realizing that you still need to have 100% financing, even if the grant is covering a certain percentage of that finance, whatever those expenses are supposed to be. And so the purpose of having these wonderful people on the panel is really to have a very frank conversation around securing financing, what types of projects are they really financing, what are the barriers that they've been seeing in financing these deals, what makes a good deal, what makes a bad deal, and then really opening up the floor to questions. So I do want to make sure we leave some time for Q&A because I think there will really be more questions in some of the other panels as well. So I'm going to turn the floor over to the panelists to allow them to introduce themselves. And please don't just say your name and your firm. Please give, like this is your commercial, your elevator pitch time. So we'll start with Maurice.
Okay, I'm going to take up the rest of the afternoon. Maurice Williams, Vice President of Economic Development at the Chicago Community Loan Fund. Thank you, Kristen, for the great time here today. I think this has been a fabulous event. But I have over 30 years experience in community economic development, everything from mixed-use commercial projects, specifically focusing on grocery anchored centers to industrial, to affordable housing, to mixed use throughout the Midwest specifically. At CCLF, I do specialize in CRE, commercial real estate investments and loans. So we do a host of things there that I'll explore with the panel today.
Good afternoon. My name is Lennox Jackson. I'm founder and CEO of Urban Equities Incorporated, founded in 1993 on the south side of Chicago. And so we're coming up on 26 years next month. During that time, Urban Equities has been engaged in helping to redevelop the ecosystem on Chicago's south and west sides. Some of the projects that perhaps you've driven by include Bronzeville Point on King Drive, the 4400 block, Alpha Village, which is also in that same block, Cornell Place in South Shore, the estates of Avalon Park and Woodlawn and Avalon between 78th and 79th. And we also played a part with the Roosevelt Square project on Roosevelt Road at Racine. And so you can learn more about Urban Equities at www.uequities.com, the letter uequities.com. So I'm happy to be here today, hoping that I can share something that might be of value to you.
Hi, my name is Dion Lucas. I'm an architect and a partner with E.G. Wood. E.G. Wood is a young company. We help entrepreneurs start businesses, open up brick and mortar, and help them run and streamline their operations. We also provide them with support services as a part of the real estate acquisition process through leasing. So as a member, you would receive branding, marketing, strategy, operations, and possibly helping with the expansion of your business.
All right, I'm Lanier Richardson. I am CEO of a enterprise here in Chicago called Chicago Trend. I always tell people that I am an entrepreneur first, and I have developed, built, and sold close to 400 single-family homes in Chicago neighborhoods here over my career. After my sort of home building years, I worked for General Growth Properties and did shopping center development in Baltimore and Detroit and Birmingham, Alabama, and other places. And about 2 years ago, we started Chicago Trend. And I've been making this argument that there's an opportunity to get and a need to get more patient, flexible, equity-like capital into projects that are led by and owned by African American and Latino entrepreneurs. And so, fighting that fight and, getting some wins.
I really don't need this, so I'll just say good morning.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
My name is Steve Hall. I'm the National Director for Economic Development Lending at LIST. I have to deploy $220 million this year in communities that are low to moderate income, with entrepreneurs of color, women-owned businesses, and veterans. Ideally, I'm a native-born Chicagoan. I have lived and worked in this city for over 48 years of my life. I'm proud to be in this room today, and I think what you want to do is more important to me than anything that I want to talk about. But our average loan size is about $1.4 million. We usually invest in really experienced developers or small businesses that have been in operations for at least 2 years. But we will invest in great ideas and opportunities when presented. And we work with a lot of the great organizations here on stage today. So thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Manny Flores, and I'm the president of SummerCore. SummerCore is a certified development company, and what that means is that the Small Business Administration has given us permission to make certain small loans for small businesses in the state of Illinois. We are also proud to say that on behalf of the City of Chicago, we administer the Small Business Improvement Fund as well as the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund. I want to stress, though, that the biggest part of our business operation, by and large, is our small business lending. In particular, it's a product called 504. And I'm hopeful that after today, I get to meet many of you and exchange business cards. I have staff here as well, and after the presentation, if you'd like to learn more about our products or like to get in contact with one of us, we will be here and provide you with contact information. Just a little bit more about SummerCore is we've been in business since 1992, serving the entire state of Illinois. We also provide a loan called Community Advantage, which is a smaller dollar loan that allows for businesses to use for their operations beyond just the purchase of fixed assets. Just a little bit more about myself. I'm a former city council member here in the city of Chicago, and I'm also the former state banking regulator. So understand a lot of the interests and concerns that many of us have in terms of making sure that we have equity in terms of access to capital and inclusion, and that we also, frankly, make sure that our financial institutions do right by our communities and making sure that they're truly investing in all of our neighborhoods. So it's a real pleasure and honor to be here with all of you.
So I will kick it off with the first question. But like I said, I do want to make sure that we have an opportunity to hear from the audience, because I think that this panel, particularly with this type of expertise, you guys would have the best benefit by getting your specific questions answered. So I'm going to start with Lennox. As a developer, when you are creating your project, so go into some detail about the type of projects that you do, but when you are determining your capital stack, what are you looking at in order to make your deals work?
Okay, so I think right now the sexy conversation piece around the country revolves around the Opportunity Zone program. By show of hands, how many of you are familiar with that? Okay.
All y'all better say yes after this morning.
So
Thank you.
that's the sexy thing now. Everybody's talking about the Opportunity Zone program. It's a lot of different things, but in its most fundamental description, it's real simple. It's just a tool that allows access to another bucket of dollars, right? And they're called equity dollars. So many of us who perhaps own a home or are soon to buy one, your banker is looking for you to have what's called oftentimes skin in the game, right? That's your equity. That's what's going to make sure we get out of bed every morning because we want to protect our investment. So with regard to that, Urban Equities has been working for several months now to structure an Opportunity Zone deal in the Bronzeville community. That deal would include acquisition of about 15,112,000 square feet, 15,112,000 square feet of land area, demolition of the building that's now sitting on it, and the construction of a 5-story building with ground floor retail and about 53 units of efficiency 1 and 2 bedroom rental apartments, market rate. So that's big picture, right? So getting down to the question, Bronzeville predominantly has a median household income of about $33,000, whereas the average median household income in the city of Chicago is about $51,000. Okay? Bronzeville has a predominant housing supply of subsidized rental housing. And so what does that mean? So that means that the fair market rental values or rates are low, which puts pressure on my pro forma when I'm trying to generate a return on investment, ROI, that can be attractive to Opportunity Zone Fund investors. And so it's challenging trying to put this deal together, which I'm penciling out at about $15 million. And so I am in talks, ongoing talks with Opportunity Zone Fund managers. Some of the feedback that I've received to date includes, we were looking more for like 10% and north of that as an ROI, but we really get the mission, we really understand the social impact that this project will bring forward to this community, and we think you're on track with a great idea. We like the location. And so now what that has required is more active time to source investor opportunity zone fund managers that share more the mission around bringing forward market rate rental housing in a community without using any public subsidy. Okay, because with the public subsidy comes all of these other little layers of requirements. And so what does that capital stack look like on my pro forma? Using that $15 million number, I'm calling for 70% of that as opportunity zone fund equity, and 30% in debt financing. And so that's what I'm leading with. I'm also pursuing the MacArthur Foundation and others like it for some portion of social equity, social investment dollars, which could be somewhere around 5 to 10%, reducing that debt to about 20%. So that's what I'm working on. We're getting some positive or favorable responses. And so I'm hopeful that over the next 60 days, we can land this airplane on something meaningful.
So just to recap, he's got 70% equity, 30%-ish debt, and trying to get some additional program-related or social equity. So that still needs to be repaid though, correct?
Yes, and so as with any investment, right, your investor wants his or her money back. That makes sense, right? Especially if you're the investor. And so she wants to make sure she's not only getting her money back when you promise to give it back to her, but she wants to make sure that her money has worked for her while it's been out of her pocket. And so she wants a return. And so that return, right now, I'm trending at about 7 to 9%. That's fairly attractive because a certificate of deposit today is only yielding about 3 to 4%. So if I'm north of 7, north of 8%, I think that's attractive, particularly given the mission of the Opportunity Zone Fund program. So one final point on this, how do I get the money back to them, right? And so the Opportunity Zone program is set up whereby you can invest your money for 5, 7, or 10-year windows. If you invest it for 10-year windows, which is what I'm seeking, you reduce your tax on your gain, and furthermore, you don't have to pay any tax on the return that I generate for you. So you're making nice money. So, but what I need that 10 years because I'm making the assumption using a cap rate of about 6 to 7%, that in year 10, the value of that asset will have appreciated sufficiently so that I can refinance and take her out and pay her money back. So this is very important now. And so what becomes important is opportunity zone deals need to be located in geographic footprints that are somewhat close to already moving development activity. So you can get the spillover effect from those other deals that are moving that are going to also push up the value of your asset. You can't be an island unto yourself because, you know, it's going to be hard to get that appreciation moving at the kind of rate that you need at the end of 10 years.
So my comment, this is a great explanation Lennox is giving. I want to pull the onion back, banana back even a little bit further. Let's take Opportunity Zone out of the picture altogether, even though you learned a lot about it this morning, which is great. Just look at the real estate deal as a cash flowing deal, meaning you have sources of revenue coming in and you got money going out. You can never have more money going out than what's coming in, period. I don't care what it is, right? So fundamentally, as a real estate deal, it needs to have some cash at the end of the day. But what happens to that cash? Is this the scenario he just laid out much more complex. That cash, that value, needs to grow over that 10-year period, right? In order for whatever money coming in to be satisfied. So regardless of the programs, regardless of the subsidies, regardless of the foundational monies and philanthropic dollars that Lennox just said he needs to make his equation work, regardless of all of that, your sources and your uses is where we need to start thinking about having a return, something at the end of the day that has value, that can grow over time. Because if you can't identify that for yourself before you go out and look for investors, it's a dead deal.
I want to add to that. We're talking about opportunity zones, and people get excited when these new words come out. And I could say promise zones and low-income housing tax credits and new markets tax credits. And we have these big sessions. And I always start with one question, like, who owns a piece of commercial real estate? And everybody starts looking around. And the challenge is whether it's a big project or a little project, the fundamentals are the same. So what are you bringing to the table, skin in the game? I'll be honest. I just told you I had to deploy $220 million this year, so that's my annual goal. And at the same time, I meet a lot of people who say, I don't have any skin in the game. My skin in the game is an opportunity zone. Well, we say, well, have you ever done this project before? No, this is the first time I'm doing it. Start small and work your way up. You know, I think lenders want to help you. I mean, there are a lot of lenders in here that are really excited if you want to just take a mixed-use property on 75th or 79th Street, and you want to do that one first, and then your long-term plan is to do what Urban Equities is doing on 35th. You can't start there. You have to start somewhere else, but the fundamentals are the same. And the good thing is when you're doing a $500,000 deal or $1 million deal, we're helping you through the experience so you can prepare for the next one. Because most opportunity zone investors aren't going to invest in you if you're doing a smaller deal. And most of them are also going to get frustrated because they're trying to tell you they want to do something bigger, and you just heard from me that you need to do something smaller. And that anxiety, right, makes for a bad conversation. It's not that they don't want to help you, but we're just trying to set realistic expectations, because if it's not 100% opportunity zone finance, the lender may not be interested. And you'll hear this come back, no comparable credit. That means you don't even have a home mortgage that's as comparable as the size of some of the commercial investments that you need to make. So just think about sizing first, do a great little project, take as many pictures of that little project. I will tell you, the lender will take a lot of pictures of your little project, and it'll go all over the country that you're doing something transformational in the community, and people will get excited, and you'll get greater opportunities to invest and develop further as time goes on.
But, I would also, along those lines, and I'm glad I was invited, because the particular loan product that we have, frankly, we're still trying to figure out how it would fit into an opportunity zone. But you just heard Steve say, look, in some instances, we need to build a track record, and how do we do that? And how do we do that in confronting and overcoming, frankly, challenges that we've all faced, in particular communities of color, and accessing credit to get us started? So the Small Business Administration is an underutilized resource. I would highly encourage you to take a look at the Small Business Administration website. There is money right now, and there's no such thing as free money. The reality is it's taxpayer money. So that means it's all of our money. But I'll give you an example of how a 504 deal may help you. So a 504 deal is a loan facility that can range anywhere from $75,000, $100,000 on the low end, up to $5 million from the SBA, depending on the size and the overall project costs. Now, you have to be a business, and it has to be for the purchase of the property for your business, but you could also finance equipment as part of that deal. Now, why is this loan something that you should take a look at? It's about creating your own opportunity. The SBA has created a long-term fixed rate loan, always under market. So right now, by way of example, you can apply for, and if you're eligible, a 25-year fixed loan, and the interest rate this month, which would still be fixed, is 4.8%. 4.8% for 25 years. Okay? That's, and the way that the program works is the SBA provides at least, it could be 40 to 35% of the money. You will still have to put some skin in the game. Remember, there's no free money. But the amount that you would have to put in is only 10%, as opposed to what in a conventional loan you'd be required to put in 2025. And that's even if you would be considered in a conventional loan. The other thing that this tool is powerful is you could be a startup and still be eligible for the loan. So that's a potential game changer for a lot of businesses. But I want to share this with you, which is one of the reasons why, you know, I'm doing these. I just started in November, and these are what I can tell you about. I feel like I've seen No Manny all of my life. I'm aggressively out there. My mission is to be an ambassador of this program, because I got to tell you, too many people do not know about it. And frankly, if you were to take a look at the numbers in the SBA, and we're trying our best to make this better, but we're not having the kind of impact that we need to make, in particular in the African American community, in the Latino community, in the rural communities, helping veteran-owned businesses. So part of my mission is to come out and to tell people about this program. But it is strategic. It's a strategic tool to get you started. And if you don't qualify for the 504 to get you on a track record to build that credit for your business, you have the Community Advantage loan, which is a smaller dollar business loan. But building credit is critical in developing that track record that's going to give people that comfort level that they can trust you with their money. So those are my comments.
So to chime in on what Manny mentioned as far as the 504 goes, and I'm speaking as a person who's worked with clients to get the 504. Some of the challenges that they still have had is the other partner is still the bank. Meaning you still, huh?
So it could be the way that the program works is you'll have the SBA, you'll have a lender. It could be a bank, it could be a credit union, or it could be a LISC.
Yes.
It could be a LISC, or some of the other team partners that we have here. And that's also one of the things that we're working on is going beyond the banking community. We have a lot of bankers here, some of whom we do business right now, and want to give them props because they deserve credit for investing in our communities. But this is about impact. And believe me when I tell you, the SBA is a self-funded agency. They are flush with cash. We got to get it out. And believe me, we don't need a darn opportunity zone to get that money out. That's independent. That's an everyday opportunity. There's no sunset on that opportunity. So I just want to reinforce that.
So what I was saying as far as the other partner, understanding what their criteria is. So the SBA has its set of criteria, and then the other banking or lending partner has its set of criteria. And so in the past, some of the challenges that some of the clients have had is meeting whatever the banking's criteria has been. So being sure, just how we talked about some of those partnerships, understanding what the criteria is for all the partners at the table, so you're pursuing what's best for you. So it might not be your home banking institution. I talk to people all the time and say, where do you bank? Oh, I bank with Chase. I'm like, Lord, they're not gonna give you any money. They're just not. Like, unless your deal is so big, you're not Chase's customer for the most part when it comes down to these types of deals. So that's why a LISC is more important in that case, or a SummerCore is more important, because while they don't have all the branches, they're not gonna do everything a bank does, but when you're going in, as Manny said, for very strategic purposes, these are the particular partners that you need to have at the table to understand what it is you're trying to do. So 504 has really been a good tool for I haven't dealt with too many black clients though that knew about a 504. And even when some of the banking partners are coming out to talk to small businesses, because they're not the SBA lender at their organization, they don't speak about 504. They'll kind of brush over it real quick. Like, oh, we have this product. So if you talk to wherever you bank at, go talk to the SBA lender at your bank and talk to them about 504. You have Steve here, you have Manny here. Anybody else on the panel do 504?
No, but we got to give Fifth Third some credit.
Carl is here. Carl is one of those resources. Like, Carl will send me a text like, you need to talk to this business owner, this business. He is a resource. No matter where he's been a resource. So you definitely have some advocates in the room.
And just so you know, for instance, in the SBA programs we just talked about, so you'll have a CDC doing the loan on behalf of the SBA, and then you have the private lender. I'm proud to say that Fifth Third and Summer Corps have consistently worked together on the 504 program. And there are others. But you know, where we provide that value, we're the nonprofit side of the equation. So our interests, we are a mission-based organization where our interests are in alignment with your interests. Our interest is purely to see your business grow, you getting the best credit or best capital deal that you can access. Not set you up for failure, but to also make sure that you get the best deal that you can in the market.
What are the average size of the deals that you guys are looking at for 504?
So we can go as high as $5 million, but on the average size, you're looking at a loan between $150,000 and $250,000. That's the average. But right now, to put things into perspective, so as small as we are, and we're a nonprofit, our current portfolio is $500 million. So putting that into perspective, we don't, we're not the size of Fifth Third. We are, speaking as the former banking regulator of the state of Illinois, I can tell you that we're bigger than many community-sized banks in terms of the number of small business loans that we're helping facilitate.
I wanted to add, I think we've jumped so fast into products, and I want to pull it back some. 504 7A SBA lending requires 10%. 504 7A SBA lending requires what's called a good credit score. Please don't tell me my credit score is bad, but I really want to do this deal, and it's bad because I had this problem with my ex, and she was tripping, and blah, blah, blah. And that's what lenders hear. And we hear it, and it's supposed to absolve what's actually in your report because you told it to us. What absolves what's in your report is the actions you take to improve it. And that's I'm glad you got a question. Go ahead.
Regarding, are you looking at personal and entity credit or just entity?
We do both.
And I would say this, the personal weighs higher because if you got hit by a bus tomorrow, the entity doesn't exist. So, don't say just business credit, which is called a non-recourse loan. It's very important how you handle your personal credit because it's the character behind the transaction.
Can you quantify good credit? Yes.
Yes. So there's a range. My minimum credit score is 600. So 600, I can give you a loan. You're not gonna get $1 million loan. You'll get a loan. And then sometimes that, from Liz's perspective, we'll even invest in a partner like an Axion or a CNI so they can do the loan. Because we may not even want to do it. We may just want to give them the money to do it. And we've done that a few times. And the reason why we do that, because sometimes we know you need some technical assistance to figure out why your credit score is somewhere between 600 and 620. SBA generally likes you to be a 620 or higher, just to be honest with you. And they really have, they have what they call the SBSS score. And after you drop below 640, your score drops precipitously based on what's on your credit bureau. And if your SBSS score is lower than 140, you can't even get an SBA loan, 504 or 7A. I have a full 7A license. So when I'm talking about 7A, that's what I'm mentioning. So if it's under 600, there are always good reasons why a lender would do it. Now, Liz is a certified community development financial institution. That means we're a CDFI. That means we actually do loans on our balance sheet that are lower credit score quality than what SBA would consider okay. We do those loans for impact because it's creating jobs, creating opportunities for people in low to moderate income communities. That doesn't mean we won't hold you to a higher standard just because we make those type of investments. That means that we want to understand if you do have a 570, what's the story behind it? And if it's medical, I'll be honest with you, we'll work with you to restructure your medical, not pay it, but make sure you have an opportunity to pay it. And we may make that investment with you. But if it's, cell phone that you got in your pocket and you just refuse to pay them because they gave you a bad deal and you didn't know you had a bad deal, you're probably not gonna pay us, and we look at that as a character issue.
I'd like to just get a little transparent here. I'm with family here, right? Next month represents 26 years of being in business. Somebody in here, has anyone in here remembered the recession that hit around 2007, 2008? Or have we gotten amnesia? Well, I remember. I still have scars that I'm healing from. My financial life took a dive. That showed up also in my credit score while trying to keep the kids enrolled in a private school. And so, why am I sharing this? Well, the credit score dived along with other things, right? And so I had to figure out, how do I get this airplane back up off the ground and soaring again? So I went ahead and, at Fifth Third Bank, got a secure card, right? And put $300 on there and kept recycling the $300 for a year. And next thing I know, whoa, my airplane is off the ground again. It was a simple little thing, but it made major impact. Additionally, I had a couple of business judgments that had to be settled in the court from a supplier, evergreen crest lighting for some light fixtures that I put in a new house that had to unload, back when the recession hit. So it was tough, but we got through it and got that out of the way. What am I getting to? It was the word character was used here. It's very important. You may think that that thing that you did back there won't come back to bite you when you want to put a deal together, but I'm here to tell you it's going to crop back up again. So to the degree that you can really give attention to your credit worthiness and your financial profile and the relationships that you develop with business people is critically important. And I credit a lot of that, aside from God's grace, benefiting me today, almost 26 years later. And many of the folks in here I do business with. It's not because I'm a great guy necessarily, but because I've been respectful of the relationships. So I just really want you to focus in on that word character.
Yes, hello. I have a statement and I have a question. Being from Inglewood and the city, like, it's high poverty, it's high crime rate, it's very drug infested, and it's a lot of killing and stuff going on in the area that I live in. So a lot of the conversation that's going on here, like, I'm really oblivious, like, I'm lost with the 4.8% and all that, because we haven't been taught these type of things as young black males, as far as like my peers and the people that I'm around. Thank y'all can clap it up. It's all but honestly, I came here because I was invited, and this actually was my first time here, and I'm very intrigued because I had no idea how many black outstanding people it is out here that's actually doing things. And my question is, due to the lack of knowledge that we have, our felonies, our everything that we have that's going on within the urban communities, I was wondering, how can we have access to the abilities that everybody else around the world has?
You gotta show up. So I'm actually doing most of my work in Inglewood, 63rd and May. If you are,
right on 57 and Aberdeen.
just come on over and talk to me. It's an old grocery store that we're rehabbing right now.
And my thing is, not to cut you off, but my thing is this, like, even though you said you're in Inglewood, I never seen you before. I don't know anything about your organization or what you have going on. It's not being advertised like the new Ciroc bottle coming out. It's not being advertised, it's not being advertised like Block 9 with the 30 extension clip in it. It's not being advertised like that.
So why don't you come join me and help me advertise?
See, that's my whole thing. That's what I was trying to come at.
So you know what? I think part of the conversation you need to have is what's happening in Inglewood. So there are a lot of organizations that host events all the time, and very seldom do the people from Inglewood show up. There are individuals from other communities showing up to receive that information. So I think part of that responsibility is not just on us, but it's also on you and everybody else there to take advantage. I volunteer all the time. If you need information from me, anything that you need to start your business, run your business, launch your business, I'm available there. But I'm not walking the blocks and searching for you and saying, hey, do you have something that you want to do, right? When I show up, you should be there and say, hey, brother, I need some help. I need you to advise me. I need some.
But a lot of guys, we don't know you. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't know what you do. We don't know who you are. And you might have to walk a block to get attention or go to some of these schools these public schools, elementary schools or high schools and have talks or whatever to the peers around, because the lack of knowledge is where we perish at.
So I do that, right?
Right,
The thing is, more people. That's the thing. If there's only 2 of us and there's 40,000 people in Inglewood, what do you expect us to do?
And I'm gonna hop in, sir. I'm gonna hop in.
Okay.
As the moderator. But I say this to say, Deon's an entrepreneur.
Okay.
You're asking for social, and a lot of these folks are socially driven.
Okay.
And I say this as a for-profit as well as a person who runs a nonprofit. Our businesses and organizations are already understaffed, overworked. Like, the amount of quote-unquote give back that I know I personally do, Deon is in some of those rooms, Lanier's in some of those rooms, Steve's in some of those rooms, and these are all not the same rooms. So when he's saying you got to do some outreach as well, because I work with an organization in Inglewood that was doing some stuff to help the kids with a basketball court. But I was helping them through a connect who asked me to do it because they understood what I did. So just like you were invited here by Mark, who works with Kiana, who is my friend, this is the power of the network. It cannot be just one person, oh, well, you got to walk down blocks. That's not his responsibility. It's the responsibility, honest, of your friends on the block to seek him out.
And my whole thing is not to cut you off. And my whole thing is the guys that I'm associated and I'm affiliated with, we are driven to do things like this. Like, we want to do things like this, but we don't have the outlet to do things like this. We don't have the knowledge. And my thing is this. You know, we come from where we come from or whatever the case is, and a lot of people are scared to come to where we at. A lot of people are in fear for their life, and they got every right to be, because it's a very dangerous community. But us as being young black men we are tired of the cycle that's going on, us getting incarcerated and us dying. So we are looking at other resources and other outlets so we can be involved in. Right now, I have a following over 2,000 people inside the community that if I say something right now, they moving with me. So at the end of the day, we have to trust the people that we're dealing with, because we've been swindled for so long and we've been bamboozled by a lot of people. And also we have to have something firm to believe in, and somebody that actually show like, dang, we care about y'all, we gonna do this, and not just show us the project, but actually teach us.
So let me stop you, bro. Let me stop you real quick. So I'm from the low end. If anybody know what the low end is, okay. So I grew up on 21st in Michigan. You know, all my homies was in gangs. You know, I done had best friends died. I had all kind of stuff. So I come from that environment, right? So, you know, I got 3 former colleagues in here. They pray to God I don't code switch all the way. So they just hold it on. I hold it back just a little bit. But
Be very honest. Like, I need you to understand. See, my panel, that's part of the reason I asked my panel to be my panel.
But I'm gonna say this. You know, when stuff was going bad in my neighborhood when I was young, and I'll be honest, I read the newspapers today and I'm laughing because they're like, crime is high in Chicago. 449 people died last year. And I was like, when I was a kid, 996 people were dying. You know, when I was a kid, my friends used to shoot at the police. The police wasn't trying to protect our neighborhood. They was like, oh, they go, what's his name? You know, so if you the cops, no, you ain't gonna protect that neighborhood. The gangs protected that neighborhood. Matter of fact, I think it's gotten a lot better, and that's just my perspective based on where I'm from. But when I saw all this going on, I said, you know what, I don't want to be a part of this. You know, now, I had to get away. I found a way to, you know, get to a good high school, got into college. I was so confused in college, I didn't know where all these kids came from. I was like, man, you live with your dad? For real? You too? You too? You go to your grandmama's house and she got a job? Like, man, it was tripped out. And I'm not trying to make fun of the situation, I'm just trying to tell you what my experience was going through it, right? But one of the things I learned a long time ago, and I can take this to, you know, some of the street entrepreneurs that are out there, they were doing it, what they were doing to pay for their bills. You know, they weren't doing it because they all wanted to be killers. They was trying to provide a better way for their families and their mamas and their grandmas and them because they didn't know any other way. So when I started finding other ways, I started telling people, man, like, did you know you can go get a barber license and cut hair? And cats was like, man, how you do that? Kane's Barbershop. You know, so I was telling people how to do stuff because they didn't know how to do it, but I would find out in college because in college everybody know everything, especially, you know, it may not be the right answer, but they would know, they definitely responded. So what I'm sharing with you is, and this is important because you're still connected to the community that needs you the most. You still gonna have to reach and go get some extra stuff, and whether you do it at a university, a community college, or whatever you gotta do, you have to go ahead and continue to get that foundation because what's going to happen is if you step through those doors, you're going to meet different people. And then you bring that message back. And I'm going to tell you, I've lost more friends from the age of 18 to 25 than I have from 25 to 48. So, I mean, like, guys was dying, but at 25, I started telling them, like, you know, you can drive a truck. and it's just, guys, like, I don't even know how to drive a car. It's like, it's a truck driving school, dude, out there, Olive Harvey. And people went out there and they just took it because they didn't want their life no more either. So when you're in the community, you have an opportunity to have these conversations. By you reaching out and identifying educational opportunities, you can start pointing them in different directions. Because even what Dion is doing on 63rd and May, he didn't have enough resources to bring it along. You have to go beyond the community to find something to save people in the community. Because all of these great products that we're talking about, the people that you know and that I grew up with, they can't get none of these products. You know, they be lucky to get a job at these places. So, and I don't want to demean the situation at all. Right now, Liz is doing a loan for a guy who got 63 indictments on his background. When I was at the bank, I couldn't approve a brother who was late on his child support. So now I'm in a position where I can approve somebody with that type of background. They call it re-entering citizens. I don't care what you call it. I'm helping somebody. So there's hope out there, but you have to keep stretching yourself so you can lead your posse to the right place because they don't know.
You are here for the morning session?
No, I wasn't here for the morning session.
Okay, so the morning session really around the neighborhood and neighborhood stakeholders. And so more than just the developers, more than just the lenders, Jim Harbin was here and he formerly worked for Inglewood CDC, Greater Inglewood CDC, who worked to get Inglewood Whole Foods. Most communities have organizations like those. Those organizations, I mean, Teamwork Inglewood is in the same building. They are doing financial literacy. There's organizations in North Lawndale Employment Network. Most communities who have high recidivism rates, high crime rates, high just obstacles within there are organizations that are working to try to alleviate some of those challenges. But like you said, no, they aren't advertising like Ciroc, because guess what? Funders don't pay to advertise, like they don't pay nonprofits to have big old marketing budgets. Seriously. And I'm speaking as both my for-profit and my nonprofit hat on. Like the funders don't pay, funders barely pay us to do what they pay us to do, first of all, let alone having a marketing budget. So you don't have a team, you don't have a budget, and you have to focus on these programs. Steve got programs like, yeah, I got $200 million to get out. Some of these programs are like, we're trying to employ X number of people. And so really, for a Dion or any of these developments to work, the neighborhoods have to be stabilized. Like every developer conference I go to, one thing that neighborhoods have to be shovel ready. Well, what does that really mean? It means if they put up a development, nobody's gonna rob everybody coming in and out of it. It's not gonna get shot up. Can the people make money who live there? Like, it's basic. So I fully understand where we have, as Eric called them, Pookie and Ray Ray. Everybody's trying to eat. Like at the end of the day, everybody's trying to eat. I'm trying to feed my family, Steve's trying to feed his family, Lennox is trying to feed his family. Everybody's not eating noodles. So the rate of how we're feeding our families varies. But at the end of the day, everybody just wants quality of life. And so what that means, and for all of my panelists, I can say the one thing we consistently have to do in order to be effective is go beyond our job description. And so what that means for you as a community resident, go beyond your job description. Your job description of, okay, this is my address, this is where I live, this is where I hoop, this is where I play. No, reach out. So yes, Dion is here, and there's Rage there. I mean, there's a ton of organizations specifically in Inglewood. So it's like, when I hear those things about how my guys didn't know, and I sit in these meetings, and I'm hearing they don't have full like, they running free programs to teach all this stuff, and nobody's signing up for the programs. So it's kind of a catch-22, where you have the nonprofit partners who are like, okay, we have these programs, and nobody's filling all the seats in the programs. That may be where an intermediary like you, who has met some people to connect your friends and your family to those resources. So the same way I said, I'm bringing out my network to teach these people about opportunity zones, you have the same responsibility. Everybody has the same responsibility. I don't want to cut you off, but I do need to get back to my panel.
I just got one more thing, and not trying to be rude to anybody else, I respect everything you guys are doing.
This year's Urban Real Estate Conference was a great event. We had people from the community come out to learn about real estate investing, access to capital, as well as access to education. I'm Soderberg with the Soderberg Business School. Let's rock and roll. I look forward to next year for the Urban Real Estate Conference. God bless you.
Hi, I'm Andrea Reed, Executive Director for the Greater Roseland Chamber of Commerce. Today was a very exciting day. My friend and colleague Kristen was able to put on and host a fabulous workshop today. I actually did not have time to be here today, but I'm so grateful that I stayed. It's very valuable information. I'm looking forward to using all of the information, take it back to Roseland, and make some things happen. Thank you for the opportunity.
I just want to say I really enjoyed being here. I had questions coming in to understand the opportunity zones. I had no idea, heard a lot of noise about it. This particular conference, this networking session, clearly gave me an idea of what's going on, what to expect out of the program, and then also just to hear some insight from my prior colleagues. I do have a past experience being a commercial banker. Saw some colleagues here, got some real good insight as far as how that industry is still working, and then perhaps how the opportunity zones will continue to mature, see how that connection will be made as it proceeds into the future. But this was a great conference, great networking. Looking forward to attending another one.
Thank you, Project 4, for bringing today an excellent event with a key group of panelists who were able to very effectively help us in this community and the communities across Chicago understand how we can better get into real estate investment, development, sales, and profitability. Thank you again. Look forward to seeing you again in our communities.
I want to thank Kristen Henson and Project 4 for putting this program together. It was very instrumental in closing the gap between the knowledge base of those who do not understand where to get financing from and doing big deals and small deals in the city of Chicago. I think this is a great first annual conference, and I look forward to the years to come where we can actually provide more information to people doing the transformation in our neighborhoods that Chicago needs at a time like this. So congratulations again. I look forward to next year, and great job, Kristen Henson and Project 4, for putting this together with all of our providers and the people who actually brought all the information on how to where to access the capital so we can get the big jobs done.
I had a great time today at the Urban Real Estate Conference. Shout out to Project 4 for just doing so much good work. I mean, the people on the panel were amazing. They had the presidents. I've seen a lot of events, but you rarely see the presidents of these banks and these lenders here. So I just thought it was a great event. Shout out to Kristen for doing so much good work for small businesses and people that just want to develop in the community. We need more people like her.
Hi, my name is Grace. I am new to Chicago, and this was a really wonderful way for me to understand what's going on a little bit, specifically within Chicago and with opportunity funds. And I thought it was really wonderful how Kristen put this together, and it was wonderful meeting everybody.
My name is Derek Wolvert, and I run the C3 Fund. I was happy to be a part of this panel this year. It was very exciting. It actually got to be a little bit dramatic, which was fun, and I'm really looking forward to next year.
Thank you so much for putting on a great conference today. I want to thank you for inviting me to be a part of it. I hope that I said something or did something that added value to not only the conference, but for those who attended. Keep up the good work, and I look forward to potentially participating again in next year. Take care.
Coming to this conference has been an amazing experience. I'm just an intern starting off with Project 4. I hope to do many more things with this company and expand my connections and network. I've learned so much and gained so much knowledge as well. So I'm hoping to make big impacts and become an asset to my community and neighborhood. And this was a start to learn and branch out into this new open territory. Thank you.
I think this event was excellent. The moderator, she's very well educated in all aspects of business, especially businesses that we need in our urban communities. Opportunity zones. It's a great opportunity for us to leverage and actually do some development. So I think the listening panelists, they were very good, very well knowledgeable. They spoke from their experience, the lessons learned, some of the things they wish they knew. Before they got started. They also, offered their contact information, which I think is important, to assist in the mission moving forward. So I'm thankful for the event. Looking forward to the next one.
Okay, well, this was a great event. I'm so happy that I came here. One of the things that's great about events like this is sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And you need to be in a room where there are people who can give you information and give you some links and give you some access to resources that are going to help you accomplish what your goals are. So this has been a great day. I can't say anything bad happened here. Everything was great. Got lots of great information, met a lot of great people. Networking is a big plus in terms of these kinds of situations. So look for this next year.
Hey, this is Kiela, and I just finished attending the Urban Real Estate Conference, the first annual Urban Real Estate Conference. It was phenomenal. Beyond just the incredible, actionable information, I made connections with people I didn't know. I reconnected with people I haven't seen in a while so that we can make some projects happen, move to the next steps. And really, it was a group of proactive, visionary people as well as community folks. And I'm just really excited to go out from here and take what I've learned and take what it got my mind cranking and the connections I made and move some of my own projects forward. I personally am, as I said, a Legal Shield Ladies of Justice, giving individuals, families, and businesses access to the legal system without the high cost of attorney fees. So if you're interested, go to my Facebook page, or my Instagram is Kiela, Kiela 360. That's Kiela 360. There's some videos on there, some photos. Send me a message. And if you want to visit the website, it's Kiela, Kiela Smith, Upton, UPT like turtle, ON, ladiesofjustice.com. And if you missed this conference today, because you're probably watching this video, make sure you put it in your calendar as soon as possible for next year and connect with their website. I understand there's going to be some more resources put on there, and I'm very excited. Thank you so much, Kristen, for putting it together. And don't space on this, y'all.